recorders, 341,000. The actual cost in 2020 is less than 5,000 for a good one in Nairobi. Portable walkie-talkies, 119,000 shillings each. Passenger security inspection systems, 14,684,200 shillings each. Luggage inspection systems, 26,247,403 shillings each. 10 kW generators, 4,266,300. Actual cost, 1.5 million. Electric hacksaw machine, 3,780,000. Actual 3,780,000. Actual cost 285,000.
Yeah, but what are they comparing? Same brand, same make, same number of items?
Same brand.
Which brand is that?
Same make.
Have they quoted it?
Well, no, of course they haven't
If
quoted
they haven't
it.
quoted it, I don't believe them.
Exactly.
Actual cost, right?
I don't believe them. No, I don't believe it.
You don't believe it?
Nah.
Say it one more
What
time.
do they mean
Yeah.
actual?
Actual cost
Versus
of what?
the ones
You know,
in
come and
River
tell
Road,
me
what?
this particular brand and make costs this much,
Yeah.
and this is how much it was paid for
Yeah.
per item.
Yeah.
And then now we can say, yes, it makes sense. But you can
Okay,
just come
I'll give you an example.
Yes.
CRBC said it needed to import 6 ZX7 DCAC arc welding machines, as each station needed 6 of these for construction. These, according to the CRBC, were bought at 444,872 shillings each. We were able to get the same for 25,000 shillings from the Chinese manufacturers. The same. That's just one example. The air conditioners were for the computer rooms for the Nairobi and Mombasa stations were bought for 1.9 million. The Nairobi station, according to the contractor, needed 50 of these, while Mombasa needed 30. All the stations got a 4.5 million shilling vehicle for the electoral engineer, which was shipped into the country without payment of stamp duty. The Mombasa and Nairobi stations each got a 45-seater bus for 25 million, a 12-seater minibus, and a 1.5 double cabin pickup for 3.5 million. All these prices were exaggerated. A state-of-the-art 45-seater bus costs an average of 15 million today, but a majority about 10 million shillings.
The best is this disco dance.
Those are dance.
Yeah, the disco dance that cost 239 million shillings, entertainment for Chinese staff. I wonder what kind of dance that
I would
was.
like to attend
Yeah.
such a party, man. It must have been off the
Was
charts.
it a one-off party or was it
Or it's still
Like an
continuing.
ongoing-
It could be going on right now for all we know. At this cost, the party still goes on.
Yeah.
probably well,
Never
just over that period of time,
Yeah.
they were entertaining their staff.
Yeah.
Just ensuring that. Well, the thing is, of course, the cost for SGR was inflated. We all know this.
So are you trying to suggest that as a percentage of what the SGR cost, 230 million isn't really that much money?
Only.
Only
Let's
230
just add
million.
only.
Actually, remember we had a discussion, and we've had this discussion about such matters when it comes to cutting costs even within the government. And there has been a hue and cry about the amount of money that is spent on teas and what have you. But before we fly off that particular handle, remember some of these things are budgeted for.
Yes.
Yep.
And those budgets are approved. Okay?
Yep.
So they become an issue of discussion when you're looking at the overall picture of the economy and you're asking the question, are these things really important?
Right.
Must we have them?
Was it a necessary cost?
Yes.
Was it a necessary cost?
It was, because by the time those things are being budgeted for, there is a reason why they're budgeted for, and there's a reason why they are considered to be important.
Even this
Right.
239 million shilling bash.
No, it's not
Yes,
the
I
amount.
think so. I think
It's
so.
not
If you
necessary.
consider the diplomatic idea, where level of interactions, where you're trying to maintain a certain level of making your visitors happy, your allies, they've
true.
extended.
Not even that. I mean, you're running a project.
yeah.
You're running a project that's spun out 5 years. 5 years, you've got staff who are working on this project. Of course, you're going to have entertainment through regularly. It's expected. Now, you may say that it's not one bash. I don't think
I don't
that
think it
is
was
one,
one.
bash.
Yeah.
I think it's over the period of time that, this amount of money was actually spent on staff entertainment. These are expert staff. So you're talking about the expatriate
Experts,
Chinese.
yes.
Yeah.
You're not talking about
Where the problem comes in, if I may call it such, is when there are no details as to what this entertainment was. Because in the absence of that, you can't really put a price tag.
You can't
say-
really.
tell
Yes,
exactly what it
exactly.
Or you can't
Yes.
say exactly what it
Yes.
was. You can't say if it was one flash in the pan. You can't say whether it was over 5 years. You can't say maybe they flew people to another country for this bash. You can't. When there's no information, then you're left to speculate and come up with your own conclusions.
Or it's touring, maybe just taking them across the national parks of the country.
And
Those are
how-
many national parks.
Those are many national parks and quite a
Yeah.
lot of maybes, unfortunately.
Probably even more national parks than we actually have.
Some could have been imaginary, but hey,
Right,
if
yeah.
you see flying unicorns, that's all right.
And the problem with these things is that we have had them happening over and over again. So however much you might justify some of these expenses, we always look at them sideways because we have known counties to be spending 9 million shillings on wheelbarrows and things like that. So this is just something that is unfortunately very Kenyan. So concern is always there when you see these figures, however much they might justify them and say, no, this were like 50 bashes over a span of 6 months, there's always a problem.
What it points to, most certainly, is at a culture that has gotten itself entrenched in our system, where everything, even those things which in and of themselves are useful and good,
Right.
you will find that the dirt enters that entire process through these additional costs that one can't actually explain or no explanation is given. If an explanation is given, you can kick as much fuss as you like. But an explanation has been given.
Yeah.
This one, you're given a figure.
And stay with it. You
Yeah.
deal with it.
Then
as
they
you
now
choose.
allow you to expand your mind in whatever direction you want.
Marinate on that.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it seems that Tullow Oil comes back and says that the government goofed big time on the oil project timelines. The government failed to meet key milestones in the last 6 months of 2019 that would have hastened the country's realization of its dream to be an oil producer. After tendering environment impact assessment, commercial contract negotiations to project finance negotiations to project and water and land agreements, the oil project has been dogged by delays. Key government agencies, including the Petroleum Ministry, the National Lands Commission, and the National Environmental Management Authority, have been slow in decision-making. Project documents exclusively seen by The Nation reveal that the agencies missed deadlines, pushing back the final investment decision and wasting valuable time and money. Regardless, the taxpayer will still have to cough up the hundreds of billions of shillings the project has already gobbled up. So now the Tullow Oil boss says the problem was indecisiveness by the state, and this will cost the oil venture dearly.
Right.
All
Remember, we were
right.
accusing them of being broke
Right.
last week. Yeah.
Before this.
They
and
still
this is-
are
And
broke.
They
They're
came
still
out
broke.
and said they're not broke.
Then they came and
Yeah.
said they're not broke. I think there's a passing now of issues back and forth. And we talked
Actually,
about this
the-
last week as well.
There's a problem here, and this one actually is a problem. Not a problem because I'm saying it's a problem. Remember, this is a company that is actually quoted in the London Stock Exchange.
Yeah.
It means it has shareholders. What do shareholders want to hear? They want to hear that this company is making money.
It's buoyant, of
Yes.
course.
Now,
yeah.
explorations that are well laced or accompanied by news that is heartwarming in terms of the capacity of all that has been discovered, that immediately points towards profits that are waiting. Okay. Now, if you look at the history of this particular company and you look at the activities in the number of countries that they are in, they seem to have gotten that tag of being prospectors. Not necessarily producers, prospectors.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wildcatters, meaning they are known for foraging into areas where they think there is oil and trying to show that they can actually get this oil out. And they really spread themselves thin. So there are those who've argued that this could very well be a Ponzi scheme in this particular sector,
Yeah.
where they will look for some other field, talk about it in glowing terms so that investors can see that they're doing something that will eventually earn them money. The problem is that this story and the storyline is becoming rather thin with time.
Yeah.
Because you don't hear loud stories about the profits that they're making and the huge businesses.
The
and
actual
hu-
production.
Yes, the huge volumes.
Yeah.
That doesn't take preeminence.
Of course, then it brings us back to the fact where, the credence then could be lent to a lot of the speculation that came out last week that actually then perhaps, I think Eric alluded to this at some point, that maybe then the amounts that Kenyans were told are actually then not available.
I always have a problem with us being told. It's our land. I mean, we have experts. Why are we being told about what's underneath our feet?
All this
Why
time
are
you
we
didn't go and
always
dig it.
being told?
The being told bit, I don't think is the problem, but it's how we listen.
Yeah?
Yes. I think one of the biological realities of the listening process among Kenyans in high offices is that they have morphed their hearing systems to actually be, should we say, recipients of encouraging, should we say, business prospects. Okay? They listen and hear, but they also receive. Now, so that entire listening process is actually completely metamorphosized. Because you do ask, we do have experts, what on earth?
Are we being...
More to the point, the sort of technology that is currently available on this planet when it comes to prospecting for oil, it's not a hit and miss thing.
No, I mean,
No, not really.
for
There,
crying
it's
out loud,
there.
it's either there or it's not
Yeah.
there.
Yes.
I mean, if you look at other countries that have been able to tell you about their reserves, you look at the United States, you look at Nigeria, you look at Saudi Arabia, they can tell
You look at even Russia,
they can tell you what is in reserve for the next 1,000 years.
and they can tell you even where
They've
it
not
is.
They're
touched
even
it.
planning
They've
for
not touched it yet.
No.
being
They've not even
exhausted.
gone into the
Yeah.
area, but they can pinpoint this is where it is, and this is kind of how much that we have.
Yeah, and we can count on it running out at this point and start planning for that. So it's that precise. So how
we already
come?
know then our reserves.
We know, yeah, we do.
We know our reserves.
Shoot,
Our
on
problem
the
here,
back thereof.
our problem here is that now we have a back and forth. So Talo is now accusing the government of pussyfooting on the whole project.
Well, indecisiveness in this case, right? Yeah.
And
So
Yeah.
before
and
you said we didn't have money, we didn't know what we're doing. Now we're telling you that the reason why we're not able to do X, Y, Z is because you didn't, meet the deadlines or timelines that we had asked you to adhere
very
to.
easy. Is this a very easy, of course, someone to
Yeah.
pinpoint? It's government.
Yeah.
Unless you're going to tell me that, you know what, we had a conversation with the Minister Muñez, and Muñez is the one who did not do this and that. If you just say
Eric,
Kenya
you know where the
government,
problem again, this word problem is really taking center stage in my discussions today.
Problems, eh?
Yes, it's in the contracting. You will find that someone sold us down the river when these contracts were signed. Haven't you seen contracts where we can't break out of it because it's going to cost us even more than the project actually cost us? So you wonder who came up with this particular contract?
Who was looking through it?
entrepreneurs in government. 16 minutes after 6 o'clock, this is a situation room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting on Spice FM in Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, and Malindi, as well as KTN News on KTN's Morning Express. Let's take a break and then we come back and continue taking a look at the headlines. Good morning.
.24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Hey, look who's home early.
Maybe it's the golden glaze of the donuts you make with Golden Fry every morning. Or it's the tasty Golden Fry dipped chicken wings you make for lunch. Or maybe it's the soft and delicious chapatis you make for supper. You're the best wife.
Oh, I think you're just hungry. But I can't make anything right now because we are out of Golden
Looking
Fry.
clear
Then
skies
it's
in
a
Nairobi
good
today at
thing that I
17
passed by the
degrees,
supermarket.
highs of
And here is your
28.
Golden Fry.
Thinking
In Nyeri
ahead, I
today,
see.
we have
Just a
mostly cloudy
genius.
conditions and rain
just
expected
like
later with highs of
Golden
27,
Fry.
currently at 16 degrees.
Golden
27
Fry
degrees in
is
Malindi and partly
cholesterol-free.
cloudy
It is
conditions
also
from today
fortified
highs
with
of
vitamin A and D,
32.
which is
In
good
Kisumu
for your
at 21
family's
degrees,
health.
partly
Choose
cloudy
Golden
conditions
Fry
this
today
morning,
for
rain
mouth-watering,
expected through the
tasty
day and
meals.
for the
Golden
coming
Fry,
days,
now
highs of
available
29
in all
and
leading
lows of
stores.
21.
Golden
27
Fry.
degrees in Mombasa
Good
and
food,
partly cloudy
good
throughout the
times.
day with highs of 33.
The weather
In
with
Eldoret
Spice
at 14
FM.
degrees, partly cloudy conditions with highs of 26. Further afield in East Africa, in Kampala, 21 degrees. Rain expected later in Kampala at 27 the high. Dar es Salaam at 27 degrees. Rain expected later as well with highs of 33. For the south of Johannesburg at 13 degrees currently, partly cloudy conditions through the day with highs of 25 and lows of 13. In West Africa, in Lagos at 28 degrees, rain expected through the day today with highs of 35 and lows of 25. Further fields in Europe, in London, currently clear skies, 7 degrees. Rain expected later, a little bit of snow with highs of 8 and lows of 2. In Paris at 10 degrees, it's raining through the day today with highs of 10 and lows of 3. And finally, in New York at 9 degrees, cloudy conditions through the day with highs of 15 and lows of 6.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Today that are being covered in the Kenyan press, and a lot of scandal, as usual, are making headlines. And I think one of the newer ones today has been spread across, given a splash in the Financial Standard this morning. We're told how rogue varsity students stole millions from NHIF. The quest for affordable public healthcare is being derailed by cartels crippling the state health insurer with fake claims. Now, when you look into this and the details that are being given, you're told 1,800% the increase in NHIF contributions between the year 2001 and 2017, and then 6,000 what new self contributors have to pay upfront and wait for 90 days for the benefits, and then what the fund paid to the healthcare providers between 2016 and 2017 financial year is 27 billion. But then we are told in what exposes deep rot at the state health insurer, an audit by the board that is yet to be made public estimates that 10% of all claims made by health facilities are fraudulent.
10%?
Yeah. I feel like I'm underwhelmed by that.
People expected a lot more,
yeah.
you know. But yes, this is the issue of fraud is one thing that NHIF has fought with for long.
Yeah.
Of course, you get so many fraudulent claims coming from very many because they have very many facilities that they're working with. Many of these facilities are going to make fraudulent claims.
Absolutely.
Coming to claim that somebody was admitted for 4 days and yet they were not admitted at all for even a single day. Claiming that somebody underwent a lot of procedures which they did not undergo. This is the criminal enterprise that is entirely running our health network.
Yeah, and we're told, according to a key source at NHIF, fake cards are generated and given to women who are supposedly infertile to seek in vitro fertilization services. They pose as wives to these officers. In reality, no services are rendered.
Sorry.
Yeah?
These fake cards,
Yeah.
they're made by whom?
Exactly. Good
By
question.
NHIF or
Yes.
there's
the officers.
NHIF
it's
officers.
an inside job that's happening. Yeah, they
okay.
pose as the wives of these officers. In reality, no services are rendered, but money for the procedure is claimed and shared out between the crooks. And you can imagine in vitro fertilization how expensive it is across the world. So
It's at
if you're
least $3,000.
claiming-
We're talking at least 300,000
Yeah.
shillings,
That's a lot.
right?
Actually, if you consider this issue of fraudulent activities have been in existence for as long as there's been NHIF, this is not new. So if those who volunteered or those who are paying into this service increased, and even the amounts that were being asked for increased, what was to be expected was that the theft that had gone on would also increase. So this lovely audit that they're doing and these wonderful results that they're giving us, have you read anywhere where they have indicated what it is they had set in place as they were rolling out these wonderful things that they were telling us about?
To fight the
To
fraud.
fight-
A check
to-
and balance.
yeah,
Because
to
I would
mitigate.
assume that is what you would have, a check and balance.
This is the thing. You can't have a canker sore that is eating deep into the marrow, right? And then you want to put a Band-Aid at the top of the wound and assume that the Band-Aid is going to sort out the
okay.
issues. We're talking about
Fraudsters
reducing...
are fraudsters,
No. We're
guys.
talking... No.
Yes, they are.
You have very many
Premise
systems,
this on
balances.
on what CT said. You have had fraud at this fund for as long as it has been in existence.
Yes.
in the insurance
Continue
sector
to-
in general.
No, NHIF.
At
No,
NHIF, we're talking
NHIF.
about this fund
This
right
one.
now.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we continue to say, we need to see how we can sort it out. We need to mitigate.
And do reports.
deal with the thing that's eating you from the inside.
But that's what they do. They deal
No,
with
they
it.
don't.
They
They
don't.
talk
Like-
about it.
Yeah.
They
They
talk
don't.
about it.
No,
We
no,
have
no, come
results
on.
here.
Okay,
They
how
unearth,
do they
they
deal with
unearth
that?
one
Look,
scandal,
look.
unearth another one, and then we listen.
Eric, how do they deal with
Look.
How do they deal with it?
Look,
What have they
look.
done to deal with the fraud and scandal that has continued to rock this fund year in, year out?
So this particular case, this particular story is mentioning some hospitals that have been identified in an audit.
This has been done before.
Right?
At
In
audit
an audit,
identification,
right?
uh-huh.
And then you identify them, and of course, what you do, you cancel contracts with those kind
But
of
that is
facilities.
their
That's
own
not dealing
story.
with the problem.
That's the same story.
Yes,
Yeah.
Same thing.
and it's the same story across, and that's why I was saying across the insurance sector. The entire insurance industry in this country is bleeding.
So they have
because
told us
of
what we know.
fraudsters.
So they have told us what we know.
What do you expect them to do?
No,
Start
it's
running
you.
their own hospitals?
No. It's you who said, Eric, that they've been dealing with it. My question was,
How are
it's
they
a problem
dealing with
they've
it?
known. What did they do to mitigate? What did they put in place to ensure that what had happened before doesn't happen? Telling us that they have ceased to provide services. That's you are dealing with the issue of the horse has bolted.
Then you want to come and tell us that what you're going to do is you're going
There's
to
an
increase
entire
you're going to
department that
increase
deals
member
with
you're
these
going to
issues.
increase member contributions.
Yeah.
You're going to make sure that maybe at some point you penalize people. So you're going to put more money and then out the back door it continues
it's
to
going
bleed.
out. I think
it
that's the
still
biggest
goes out.
problem,
That's the
yeah.
problem.
Of course,
Because-
it is a problem. Just like I said, fraudsters are a problem.
Yes, but I'm saying they're not dealing with the fraud as the issue that is rocking NHIF.
What did you have them
From
do?
the inside.
They need to deal with this
They should
fraud
tell us
issue
what
from the
they've
inside.
put on-
Tell us
How?
what
How?
tell
Allow
us
me-
what they're
allow
going
me
to
to-
put
allow
in
me to
place.
wade
they're
in
doing
here.
to fix
What
this.
should they do?
They should have, alongside this report, told us what they had put in place to mitigate against this, and how it is these things were circumvented. Then I would
Have you
even
looked at the
speak.
report and you didn't find that?
From what I can see, I don't
This
see
is
it.
a news story.
No,
This
from
is
what
not the
I'm seeing
NHIF.
here,
This is a
from what
news.
I'm-
This is a news story.
But Eric,
the person
I
who's
am
written this
discussing
story.
what is in the paper.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying. I'm telling you.
Yes, have you read the report?
I have not read the report.
Precisely. So
So the report
I am
itself,
assuming
if you had gone to read the report itself, the entire audit report that has been done by the board, and you tell me that the audit did not factor in any mitigating measures or any action that has to be taken, then we'd have a conversation.
It's okay. The same argument could be said for the other side. If you had read the report, Eric, and you see that it is not the case, then you can water down CT's argument. But at this point, you can't.
There's no argument.
No, you're saying that it is not
But
the
we do
issue.
have
You're
an
saying
argument.
At this
actually.
point, there's no argument because
No,
you're not
Eric,
basing
they
it on a
actually-
report. You're
Eric,
basing it
Eric.
on hearsay.
Eric,
And your hearsay is not complete.
a newspaper report is a report. What has been written here is
Yeah.
a report.
It's highlighting one side
Perhaps
of the
to
report.
speak to the issue of a solution that's going to be possible, they say when the hammer falls, there will be massive casualties as plans are afoot to lay off staff in the face of scheduled automation, even as Duba insists that this will involve staff rationalization, which will seek to place staff within the areas of specialization. So of course, they're looking at the people who are doing inside jobs and informing this fraud. And
This is a copy and paste from the banking sector. Okay? The only thing is that the banking sector in this country is making money but
Why?
laying off people. In this case, it even explains that you would understand why they're laying off people because they're hemorrhaging, they're bleeding.
Yeah.
they are.
Yes,
Can't
and
afford
they're saying automation will help.
And they're looking at measures to now cut the bleed.
Yes, but again, band-aid on a broken leg.
Absolutely. It's not
Yes.
going to work, unfortunately. And you know, the thing is, I think that scandal and corruption has been an accepted vice within the fund because we talk about it having been there for so long. NHIF, you expect the following word would be scandal or fraud. Honestly, once we see a headline, you see
NHIF, you know
NHIF,
what's
you're going to
coming.
assume the next word is fraud or scandal
So what the
or
board
10
is
billion
doing-
shillings down the drain.
The board is firefighting. They're trying to give the impression they're actually doing something about it, when in reality they're doing nothing.
Firefighting with a trickle of water as opposed to a jet stream.
Yes.
Well, I think
And it's
Actually,
not going to
It
work.
wasn't a trickle of water. It's like filling your mouth with water and, trying
And then
to put out
spitting
a
it at the fire.
yes.
And then running a mile down the road,
To
filling
fill
your mouth again.
And then spitting
Yeah.
again.
And then
into the-
that's actually what's happening.
Yes.
You know, and I wouldn't be surprised if these because these individuals that they talk about who are
The crooks,
printing cards, the
basically,
crooks, they
yeah.
know very well who they are, but it's been accepted. Nobody's going to fire them. Nobody's going to prosecute. Nobody's even going to talk about it while the lights are on.
Right.
Maybe it's just swept under the carpet and they say, okay, now let's look at austerity measures. Let's cut our advertising by 600 million shillings.
Yeah.
Let's do, I mean, come on.
It's not
if
possible.
Deal with the wound, man.
It's not possible for fraud of this scale and this magnitude to be perpetrated without
the knowledge and assistance
of
others
those who actually run
Inside.
this fund.
There's no way.
Absolutely.
There's
Yeah.
no way.
So
And
fraud,
if you're
fraud
thinking
just
that
like in the
it's-
banking system, fraud just like in the insurance system, the entire insurance sector has people who are insiders, right?
That's
so
for sure.
it has got insider play.
yes.
And like I was saying, fraud in these particular sectors is widespread.
Yes, and they must deal with it if they're going to sort out the issues.
And they
Absolutely.
always must deal with it, yes.
And some of the cases that are being put forth are quite petty and not at the headquarters level. They're even down in the small towns. You're being told 3
That's
private
right,
facilities
that's
in Bungoma are also under investigation for allegations of inflating bills and colluding with the patients to defraud NHIF funds. In another case reported to the police, a man identified as husband is accused of creating fraudulent medical bills using the details of a woman based all the way in Embu. And of course, just showing that it's not just the money is not just seeping out from the the top areas and in the billions. Even the small people have figured out ways to
That's
defraud.
actually where it's perpetrated best.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
it's difficult to identify.
You go to a small health facility somewhere in a village, and then, of course, this health facility has received maybe
True.
10 people, and it claims for 40. It's a constant thing that
Yeah.
keeps happening, and I think it's a major issue that NHIF will have to deal with, have to find ways of better dealing and addressing this. And I think soon we'll have Nicodemus Odongo, the acting CEO, or even just the board, the vice chairperson himself, come in and let's ask these questions of them directly. What exactly is happening to NHIF and what it is that you're doing to make sure that NHIF is coming back online? Or even just the new CS who says is coming in with room to sweep. It's 6:30. This is The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting on Spice FM and KTN News on KTN Morning Express. Taking a look at the headlines, let's take a short break, take a look at the traffic, and then the conversation continues.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
All right, let's kick things off in Mombasa today, where 5 ferries are at your service, according to the Kenya Ferry Services, and that should ease traffic today in and on and off of the island, so that shouldn't be much of a problem here. In Nairobi, Kiambu Road, get ready today because it's going to be epic, folks. President Uhuru Kenyatta and his friends from Germany will be going to the Kiambu Institute of Science and Technology at around 10 o'clock, so they're going to close off the roads at some point, so you want to get out now. If not, it's got to be after 10. Thika Road this morning, right around Safari Park Hotel. Traffic started at about 6:15, and that is snaking its way slowly until the city centre. All right, looking at other parts, Mombasa Road, of course, starting as far back as the Way Bridge today. Traffic is snaking along slowly as well. Survey to Mathaiga right now on Thika Road. There's no traffic, but it's likely to increase in a very short time. Taking a look at Westlands along Waiyaki Way around the 87, not so bad. And the Red Hill bypass, of course, that leads to and from Kabete, not giving us too much of an issue there. That's an option. The southern and eastern bypasses can be used right now, not much. We'll see what it looks like in a short while, but for now, I've warned you, if you're on Kiambu Road, now is the time to get out before it closes off. Let us know what you see. Let's spread the word this morning. Spice FM KE on Twitter, or give us a call on 0719 012.
Spice FM, Malindi.
You are listening to Spice FM. My name is Trix Ingara, joining CT Mugan.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Papers and just seeing what has been prioritized by the Kenyan press. The Standard this morning, if you've been watching on morning and social media, flipping through some of the top
Mornings
and the political
done
bulldozer,
right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
We're taking a look at some of his political wins, how it has worked for him to walk out of parties and political, alliances, and of course some instances where it did not work out too well, and of course how he, as I said earlier, eviscerated the political careers of some of his political colleagues or fellow politicians, if you like. I don't know what the room makes of this very detailed documentation of Raila Odinga's political career and political maneuvers.
Well, this one is certainly eye-catching. Political bulldozer.
Right.
And then you're asking who's
I would have
next.
actually referred to him as political earth mover.
Tinga. This is what he is.
Because a bulldozer, we know what a bulldozer does. Yes, it's actually an earth mover. But then there are known equipment that do more than just that. Okay, that's what they're called, earth movers.
Doesn't do him justice to call him the bulldozer.
Well, a bulldozer is significant in that it creates a certain imagery, okay, that of an individual who nothing will not permit anything to stand in his way. You'll be shunted aside as you move along. But why I'm talking about an earth mover, you see, an earth mover does a little more than just moving the earth.
Yeah.
It places it at a strategic place. Yes. Meaning it's well placed so that it can actually be utilized later. And if you look at some of these modern equipment, the earth mover doesn't do just one thing. There's a component that excavates. There's another component that sort of like same gadget.
Yeah.
There's another one which sort of like paves. So yes, earth mover.
I'm wondering, what's the import of this story? What is the story telling us?
Well, I think looking at what they've basically alluded to is that, he's been able to take down quite a number of political heavyweights.
Right.
And of course, then seeing him as then eviscerated, if I may borrow Trick's word this morning, the Jubilee Party, and looking at now the final and complete destruction of Jubilee by his single
So what's new in the
repetitive
story?
moves.
What is this? A biography of Raila? What is this? What's
An
the story?
ode to Raila.
It's a different angle to this running story. That you see, the Daily Nation has been direct. It has said Raila complicates Ruto's bid for top job. That's very direct. But this one, it's literally the same issue, but now telling us that this is a trend and a pattern in Raila's political career, where he has a way and he thinks ahead of everyone, a way of infiltrating into political allegiances and making it work.
Yeah,
That's
so
the
why
narrative.
tell us this
Okay,
story
okay,
today?
that's the
That's the
narrative.
question I'm asking.
But that's the narrative.
Yeah.
Ask yourself, these parties that he apparently has decimated, which ones are they? Because I would actually ask the question, at the time of his moving away, in what state was that party in? Okay, because the claim is he is involved in a certain party or political movement, he moves away, and his moving away seems to dismantle that whole machinery.
Yes.
And I'm asking the question, is it his moving away that dismantles the machinery?
Or were they on their way there anyway?
Yeah.
That is the
Were
question
they
that
in
I'm
a
asking.
state whereby, because it's difficult for me to understand how somebody would come in and single-handedly take apart something which probably was not already on its way there.
Because
You
they
know?
do give us the numbers and they're telling us that, but most of the examples they give from the past are of him walking out or joining another political outfit. But in this particular situation, the handshake was him joining the government or the presidency or Jubilee in a sort of way that it's supposed to help the country work out. But then the loser in that equation obviously is the DP, as is being alluded to this one.
But it's the same story,
Yeah,
really. Think about it.
yes.
Let's start with Ford Kenya. Okay? When he moved from Ford Kenya, what did he move into? NDP. Okay? Ford Kenya continued. Remember, it did continue. And then he moved from NDP, meaning these movements, him moving from one party to the other, that is the narrative and it is what we have seen.
Yes.
But I'm saying, pause. That's what we are seeing. What else was actually
Happening around that time.
Yes, around that time. What these parties were clearly vehicles. What is it about these parties that he saw and knew that made him come to the decision? No, I think it's in my interest to actually move.
shift.
Yes. Now, there are those who will say there are people who have that ability to actually see ahead politically and determine this is the path to take. But remember, if we look at the biggest fallout, that was Kanu, ask yourself, every and any political heavyweight in this country at that particular point had either been in Kanu and moved away, and even those who stayed there, they were heavyweights in their own right.
Right.
Yeah.
There were too many chiefs in that party. Now you tell me, do you really imagine that where you have so many people who actually have weight, that each of them is going to be content to just sit around and wait?
Yeah.
The answer is no. And remember, it was clear that Moi was coming to the end of his term.
Yeah.
So without Moi as president in Kanu,
There's going to be a
was
lot of
going to
internal
happen, yeah.
competition.
exactly.
Yeah, and to what you're saying, let me read an excerpt that alludes to that. It says, here is Raila Odinga, the political operative in his element. In the past, he rocked the Kanu boat in 2002. 18 years on, Kenya's Independence Party is still wreathing in pain. Kanu is still staggering from the political blow that Raila dealt it in the wake of the Uhuru project. It is difficult, almost impossible, to know what is going on in Raila's political mind at any one time. That's why I'm calling this a sort of political love letter to him, because there are other elements that contribute to some of these parties not living out living on in the same greatness that they were, not just Raila, shifting, So perhaps he could tell what was the direction that things were going, in which they were going, and he just acted accordingly.
Think of the people who followed Raila out of Kanu. Yes, mention them. I mean, these weren't political lightweights.
Yes.
So what is it that they understood? We, the media, indicated that, well, our current president then was the chosen successor by Moi.
Yes.
And they objected. And having objected, they didn't just voice their objection, they gave it feet and they walked away. Okay?
Shifted, yeah.
Now, you ask yourself, all right, so they were all in agreement that they should walk away from this to form this particular union. That didn't also last very long.
They were going to cross a bridge when they
They
just
crossed
knew-
it when they
Yeah,
got
they
there.
got there.
What we need to do is get out of here.
Yes.
For
It's
starters.
not
Where we're
working
going
anymore.
is let's
We'll
figure it out on the
figure it
way.
out on the
Yeah.
way.
Yes.
So they moved on. Of course, between that time and 2005, there were back and forth, and then they got that opportunity with the Kilifi draft
Yes.
referendum.
Yes.
And there was, of course, a perfect opportunity. This is the Orange movement. Let's form a party. Let's call it Orange. Let's
Yes.
ride on this particular wave. ODM came into being.
But
Right.
even remember the formation of ODM. Who formed it? Who actually was behind it? What happened? How ODM Kenya came into being? Now, these aren't being brought into being. Now, if I were to give this thing a heading, I would have called him a political seer.
Yeah.
Meaning, what is it that this person seems to be able to see?
Yes.
Forget bulldozing means movement. I'm thinking the thinking that they allude to which they can't understand.
True.
What is it that this person thinks and sees and
sees that
understands?
nobody else can.
Because the movement actually comes after perhaps
The
The-
seer title has already been taken by the giraffe. That's done.
Yeah.
That's done.
The political giraffe that already we have.
so that
it's
one
occupied.
has been allocated
Yeah,
to
so
someone.
this one is Tinga, a hammer, Nyundo, bulldozer.
Ish.
Yeah, this
Falls
is-
right into it. But why is it that the newspapers are actually, giving us the profiles of these two politicians constantly, right now?
They're feeding into a narrative.
Yes.
And we've
Because
said this before.
it's Raila, it's Ruto. It's Raila, it's Ruto.
Ruto,
It's
yeah.
Raila, it's Ruto. What
You
about
can just
the
guess that
others?
tomorrow will be Ruto.
Actually,
Yeah.
actually, the
Yesterday
media,
was Raila and Ruto.
Yeah.
the
as,
media, the
one of the
media
headlines
seems
was-
to be playing a psychological game called conditioning, because we read this so often that in anyone's mind there is an issue between Raila and Ruto,
Yes.
because you read it all the time.
Right.
And if you were to do an audit, if you went out into the society right now and talk about top picks for 2022, just an example, it's these two gentlemen that are going to come into mind. Of course, because of that conditioning that has taken place, it's been there. It's all you see. It's all you read. It's all you consume.
And it
so right now,
continues.
and it continues, and so that's what you know in your head. And unfortunately, that's the thing that conditioning does. Conditioning then does not allow you to grapple or dance with other options that may be
Right.
available. So conditioning targets only two things. So then, of course, you want to ask yourself if there is an agenda to get these two gentlemen front and center, and nobody else then doing that dalliance at that point.
Right.
Maybe actually it's not just us, the media, who are perpetrating this. Let's say it's a communication departments of these two campaigns.
Yeah.
Maybe they are just more active.
Oh, I don't doubt for a minute. I think if they were not doing, I think that if they were not doing that, then there wouldn't be a communications department worth their salt. I think they are very clear about what they want to do. We know for a fact that things like making sure that people are telling a particular story a certain way is what they're best in. They flip the script, they condition, they spin, they know what to do. And you can't say that they're just sitting there and saying things and then it just happens to find its way into the media. Oh, no.
Yeah,
they're very targeted.
Yesterday I was talking to a young man who innocently said, "Oh yeah, kwani Ruto amefanyia watu nini?" And I wonder if it's a deliberate effort to make him seem like the underdog, or is it literally they're getting the opposite result by targeting him negatively?
If you listen to the way politicians speak, and their inclination towards repeating certain things. What do you think conditioning is all about?
It's all about
tell you the same
thing over and over. So you'll say, but why does this person keep saying these things? Yeah. It's because they know you're going to be hearing it. And it'll find a place in your mind, it'll lodge there.
And they look at children. You look at a child at the age of 3 who has just started school. And I think about my son, and for the last 3 weeks, it's been the letter A. And I'm like, oh my God, we all get it, right? It's the letter A. But you know what? Once you ask him, you show him this sound, he knows it. And it's been repeated. Every hour for the last 7 weeks, it has been repeated. Letter A, A,
He's got it.
This is the sound, he's got it. It's the same principle that is applied here. Yeah. You keep putting you keep putting it in there, you keep putting the face, you keep putting the message. That's what you hear, that's what you know. It becomes automatic.
Yeah, because yesterday's headline, I think, on the Daily Nation was the making of a breakup. And the breakup was between, obviously, the president and his DP. That's the breakup they're alluding to. And then when you look here, we're talking about the political bulldozers whose maneuvers now is resulting in a possible breakup.
But that's what bulldozers do. They break things up.
They break things up.
Yeah. So basically, we're telling
the
same story, different angles, different ways, on different papers. But it seems like we're just the same conditioning. It's a narrative that's being targeted in over and over again.
But also what is of interest is that the narrative, if you notice, it mentions the president from time to time. My words, mentions the president from time to time. Center stage.
Yes.
2 individuals. And the narrative has gone on to the point where it's being presented as these are 2 equals fighting for a certain political future. So I will ask the question that I would have asked. Are they really equals?
Now, speaking of the president and...
for us to have a proper contest in 2022, we must position 2 people as equals. Otherwise, it's not going to be a contest.
That is we, the media.
Yeah. We even the political strategists. They've got to be positioned as equals. If you put them as, one is stronger than the other, then you're basically saying there's no contest.
Yeah.
You have no story. You cannot sustain 2 years worth of stories if you already have one who's a clear head above shoulder above everybody else.
And I think they have managed to keep them like that at par. Yeah. Whoever they are, the ominous they.
Even if you look at the reporting of Raila Odinga and William Ruto, the reporting, and again, that's us, the media, the reporting seems to once again be pandering to a certain narrative.
Yes.
So it's like, this reggae that they want to stop, they're looking at the wrong reggae. This is the
real reggae.
This is the actual reggae. Morning Express on KTN News. We'd like to say goodbye to you. And Trix, thank you very much for joining us. Shall we see you again tomorrow?
Looking forward to seeing you either tomorrow or the day after.
Or the day after. My goodness.
See, we're being given a choice either tomorrow or the day after. Or even the day after the day after.
Either way, just know I'm around.
Okay. Noted.
Thanks, Trix.
Thank you. Have a good day. Asante sana. Keep it right here. This is a Situation Room. It's broadcasting on Spice FM 94.4 in Nairobi, at 7.9 in Mombasa, Kisumu 102.5, Nakuru 96.0, 96.7 in Eldoret, Nyeri 90.9 and Malindi 97.7. We are also live streaming the show on Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube and Twitter, as well as www.spicefm.co.ke.
The latest talk and greatest memories on Spice FM.
Africa. Culture, sayings. Proverbs from the continent of Africa.
Teeth do not see poverty. What this proverb means is that even when circumstances are very difficult, people will still find something to smile about.
Yes, we take a
Family
look at
is
what's
where
covered in
it
the
all
papers.
happens.
Let's
The
look at that story
highs and the
about blood
lows,
and blood
the
transfusion.
cries and the laughter,
It's
the good times and
It's
the bad
go.
times.
shockingly alarming.
Our family.
Classic
I
soul,
don't-
R&B,
you know what?
smooth
It
jazz,
drains
neo
the
soul,
blood
and
out of
nostalgic
you.
ballads.
At this
You're
point,
listening
because
to
see
Spice
that-
FM.
And we had this conversation, we were scratching the surface, and to really look at the depth to which this it's unbelievable. And just looking at the details, I don't. We're looking at numbers of blood in certain amounts of blood in certain counties where it's not even being screened because they don't have the
So
kits
basically,
to screen them.
we're running a campaign. Campaigns are being run on blood donation. So people go and donate their blood, but then that blood is going to waste because the Kenya National Blood Transfusion Services, that's the one that's supposed to be in charge of the blood bank, does not have reagents that are going to ensure that we test the blood and therefore put it into proper use. This is what is happening. The state of the blood transfusion services in Kenya has hit the red line. The once regular heartbeat that supplied blood to all Kenyans in need is nearly a flat line as the cash veins run dry at the KNBTS, the unit of the Ministry of Health. So dire is the situation that the unit has run out of reagents to test donated blood for such deadly infections as HIV, hepatitis B and C, and syphilis. Taking a look at them, county by county. In Thika, they have 623 units. All have been unscreened, so none can be used. Kisii, 212 units, screened 0. Machakos, 170 units, screened 0. Kwale, 0 screened, 150 units unscreened. Just like that. And then you have West Pokot, where you have 164 units unscreened and 16 units screened. This basically is...
This isn't a pleasant picture.
It isn't. And the whole issue of blaming it on the donor, I'm still not buying it.
No. But how does the donor come in?
The donor doesn't come in here at all.
Maybe the narrative here is actually just to try and paint the picture. You see, when you guys are taking away the money, you see what's going to happen? Please bring the money back.
No.
You know where the problem, again, the word problem today. If you look at the length of time, the government has not even had the reagents that are required to not only make this blood safe in terms of testing it for diseases or for testing it for any issues that may arise, but for even ensuring that the blood, the body, as we call it, is put into the segments that make it possible, A, to actually last longer and to actually be specific for the need that is required.
From platelets to plasma to all sorts of
all
things.
that,
Yeah.
okay? Blood on its own, as it is whole blood, doesn't have a very long shelf life. Now, if you don't have what is required to ensure that this blood meets the needs of the requirements rather that are there, just for starters, then it means you can't store it. So even when people donate, the likelihood of it being wasted is high. But secondly, the truth of the matter is the demand for blood and the quantities we keep speaking of arise from a knowledge of what is needed. So there's also a likelihood that blood actually is passed on to those who need it. Now, the real danger, without the screening.
Look here, yesterday there was a story that was carried and we had 13 patients turned away who were in need of critical surgeries, turned away from Kenyatta National Hospital because they did not have adequate supply of blood. And this was the reason why. These surgeries cannot take place. We don't have blood. We need to figure out another solution. So they were asked to go home. But what I am really having an issue with is even with the few blood drives that were that took place, right? The struggle to actually get this amount of blood donated. They were aware that they did not have the reagent kits. They knew they did not have them. So people came, gave this vital life to these hospitals, but then they still threw them away because they still did not have the capacity to screen, so they could not do anything with it. To me, it's a very simple 1 + 1 = 2 solution. You know you don't have the reagent kits. Don't take the blood. Don't give people the illusion that you're actually going to do something with it. Don't do that. And here we're dealing with, it's a little bit beyond common sense. We're dealing with common sense issues. Don't take it. Don't do it. You don't have the reagent kits. Is there something that you can do to get them? The screening process will not take place. So obviously you cannot use this blood. So why do we continue to engage in these activities in futility? Why do we do it? And if it doesn't piss people off to the point whereby people are asking questions, to have arms raised up in contest of these things, then we continue to have a problem. Like I said, we barely scratched the surface what we thought was going on in terms of just the shortage of blood. But it goes way beyond this. And there's nothing that you're going to tell people and say it's because we don't have funding. Come on. What are we talking about? People in need of life-saving surgeries can't have them because there's no supply. And then the very little that you're able to get, you have to throw it away because you don't have a screening system in place.
Actually, I would take the discussion further. How do you know they threw it away? They're telling us they threw it away. How do we know?
At all. Maybe at this point they're even using it and then transfusing people with blood that they've actually not screened, compounding the issue even further.
Yes.
Conspiracy, but you got to think about it like that.
If there is no record of blood that has actually been destroyed.
You only can assume that they actually used it.
Again, you'd look at how many people over this period of time have come to this facility and have required blood.
Yeah.
How many have been transfused? Now, we don't have those details, so it can just be speculation. Now, how many have been turned away because of this factor? Remember, there's also the factor of relatives and friends are asked to donate, and maybe they donate. But in the absence of the kit, in the absence of the reagents which are required to ensure that this process is actually carried out safely, what then are you doing? Remember, that function that a health facility or a hospital is supposed to have suddenly now presents a danger which it's not supposed to. Because how do you deal in blood that has not been screened? How do you even have a situation where you have blood that is not screened?
You know, the fact that we have a Ministry of Health that has not come out to address this issue, right? Since the first time it emerged. So yes, there's an issue of shortage of funding. There's also the issue of somebody forgetting to include it in the budgeting cycle. So it's not actually also included in the national budget. But then we have a Ministry of Health that is functional. We have a national blood transfusion services that is operating. There are people who are reporting to work
Every day
on
and being
a
paid
daily
every
basis.
month.
And we have this kind of stuff. I take it back to just the entire government and how the government thinks about its people. That you fall sick, you're going to be able to be flown out of the country because you are a senior government officer. But the rest of us, if you require blood, shauri yako, you could die just
come
because.
With your own.
Yeah.
You know,
in
this
this
story, even if you come with your own, it has to be screened.
Still has to be screened, and they don't have the kits to do
You cannot
this.
receive it in
Yes.
in a hospital.
And you know this, I think even a little bit more mind-boggling in this sense is that we're not talking about one center. We're looking at the country. This is countrywide.
Yes.
From county to county to county, these things are not available. And this is what I'm saying. If it doesn't, in this case, curl your blood, curl your toes, or shimmy your blood. In this case, then I mean, this is quite serious.
Out of the counties that Dr. Mercy Karir, who's written this story on the Standard this morning, has looked at: Thika, Kisii, Machakos, Kwale, Bungoma, West Pokot, Kericho, Eldoret, Narok, Kisumu, Naivasha, Voi, and Migori. All these towns. Looking at Migori is the one that has the highest percentage of screened blood. Yeah, the other way around. Screened blood. 50%. 80 units screened, 78 unscreened.
Yes.
But places like Eldoret, 288 unscreened, 35 screened. Kericho, 305 units unscreened.
This
is units of blood.
Yes, these are really scary. This is scary stuff. This is very, very, very scary stuff. It follows hot on the heels of the one thing that we keep hearing the medical staff members going on strike about. Not just payment, but they can't
do their job.
They raise these issues.
They can't expend
all
their duty
all the time.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the reasons why they go on strike, members of the Kenyan Medical Practitioners and Dentists Union, is because of such issues. Not necessarily because of their pay.
No.
But
You can't work.
You can't actually do your job.
No, you can't.
Really? I mean,
You need reagents, you don't have reagents.
But Eric, you actually brought
You need
in
kids,
something
you don't have
that is
kids.
actually, I think, pertinent. Forget all the rhetoric that we keep hearing from politicians, but it is clear that those who we have put in position of leadership over us don't give a hoot.
They don't.
About what
They will
happens.
they will be flown out. So you get an accident on Nakuru Highway, you will be taken to that small medical facility, and then you'll be airlifted to Nairobi, and then you'll
If
be
that.
flown out of the country. The rest of you guys suffer.
figure it out.
Figure it out. Unfortunately, this is where we are. Thank you very much for tuning in to the Situation Room this morning, the audience on KTN News. Thank you for joining us. Of course, join Trixie Gado. She'll be on KTN News this morning with the ANC leader, Musalia Mudavadi, will be on KTN. Then also, he probably will be joining us on the Situation Room later on. Well, it's coming up to 7 o'clock. Have a good day. Well, keep it right here because we are having more conversations. Good morning.
The sections of Thika Road that have been closed due to the work that's being done on the
Spice up your
footbridges.
life.
So you're going to have to approach with caution and make sure you take the right
Spice
exit, or you could
FM,
find yourself in another
Nakuru.
town, literally. All right, on Mombasa Road,
Traffic.
the normal issues that we have with traffic being very slow because, of course, the increased traffic on these roads. Kiambu Road, we of course are at 8 lanes right now. Everybody trying to get out before President Uhuru Kenyatta and the Germans go to visit Kiambu Institute of Science and Technology. All right, so then looking into Westlands, not much going on right now. It's moving and moving just as normal. Nothing really out of the ordinary apart from what we see on Thika Road and Kiambu Road at the moment, and of course Mombasa Road moving very slowly. We'll take a look at Langata Road in a short while. Naivas, or rather on Ngong Road, is flowing all the way down through town very smoothly right now. We know Mombasa Road is bad, and we also know that Langata Road is bumpy to bump at some point. Let us know what you see. Spice FM, please, how you can reach us on Twitter. Let's see how we can keep ourselves moving.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and
We
believer
live
in
stream this
people
show every
power,
morning
and
in
Eric
www.spicefm.co.ke.
Latin, agent
Also
provocateur,
live
the
streaming on
man in the
Facebook,
chair,
Spice
seasoned
FM
journalist,
KE. We're
news
on YouTube,
hound, a
Spice
man
FM
who
KE,
believes
as well
in
as our
punching
Twitter
up,
handle at
not
Spice FM
down.
KE. You can tag us
This
individually
is
at
the
Ndu
Situation
Oko,
Room,
at
the
CT
only
Muga,
way to
at
start
Eric.
your day.
At 2.5 minutes past 7 o'clock. Well, let's start the conversation and look at just basically piggybacking on what we were just talking about just a short while ago. Our preparedness and how serious we are in taking care of issues that we see coming.
What actually happens when you read the papers and you're told, with the headline communicates to you and tells you, patients at risk of unsafe blood as cash veins dry up. What this means is that there was an unpreparedness. PEPFAR funding, when it came to Kenya, was in 3 phases. One, there was the emergency that took over the years 2005 and 2000 to 2009. Then there was the second phase, which was the sustainability phase, which was 2010 to 2014. And then there was the transition, which was supposed to be from 2015 to 2018. What it means is that when it comes to funding from PEPFAR, Kenya is actually sustainability. You you needed to be able to prove as a government that you're actually able to carry on these services that have been provided for you with the system from platform. Now, the last stage that we speak of, which is transition meeting, was to wean ourselves from what the funding was doing and we to accommodate whatever was being done through our own funding. The understanding was that, given this period of time, the demand which was brought about by the numbers of this care was significantly reduced. So the burden in terms of finance wouldn't be as great as it was when the funding came. But what do we see in the paper on a daily basis? It is one statement of unpreparedness after another. And now we have the coronavirus. But if I may mitigate just briefly, if you look at the story of China, right now the WHO have been full of praises for China, the speed with which they have actually tackled the coronavirus. But the story that doesn't get the headline was how China literally ignored the early signs. They ignored medical practitioners who had told them about the disease. And the question that has been asked is, if they had heeded this clarion call, would they have needed to take these very huge leaps and bounds that have ended up even affecting their very economy, the very heart of the economy? We look around us, there is now an alarm that has been sounded in Korea. There's an alarm that has been sounded in Italy. These are countries that by any measure are considered to be developed countries who know what to do. If indeed the attitude we have towards medical care and towards the health of our people is the same, what if we have a situation where there's a certain outbreak of corona in this country? What do we think will happen to the citizenry? In answer to that question, I have to say this. The coronavirus is a warning sign that we should heed very seriously. And as we heed it, we need to start taking care of the mundane and simple things that our healthcare is supposed to be able to. We need to be able to provide safe blood. We need to have it in sufficient quantity. We need to make sure that our hospitals are equipped with what it is that makes them a hospital. So, should the coronavirus come in whatever shape or form, we are prepared.
Preparation, Kenya, same sentence.
Lack of preparation, Kenya, same sentence.
That's more doable. That's more doable. Look, we have had Ebola across our borders for decades.
Yes.
Have we ever been prepared for it?
Yes. We had a screening point at the airport.
That you come in and you tell us where you've been.
Yes.
Whether you've been to the DRC
Yes.
recently.
And then they check your temperature.
With 2 units that sometimes function, sometimes they don't.
And we know very well that we've been told that even at the border points, there were such units that would check before you crossed. Now, if you imagine that our border crossing is done more by bus and public transportation than by air.
Yep.
Yes.
And it doesn't happen.
The unfortunate thing is that it doesn't. People actually literally just walk across. So one could argue that it is perhaps the nature of this disease that has helped us in this sense. One, it tends to kill the host rather quickly. So it doesn't give the host enough time to actually pass it on.
Yep.
But secondly, a lot of the infections have taken place or centralized in a particular area. And it's like it works within that particular ecosystem and doesn't really move out. And when it does, because of the alarming symptoms that it has, people normally rush quickly and contain it. But remember, this one is airborne. The coronavirus is airborne. Means of contact, if you look at the case in Korea, it is being argued that it began from a church group who, in effect, had gone to visit one of their own in hospital. Now, what that has done, it has increased the numbers to alarming proportions of people who actually now have tested positive for having the virus. And this is a story prior to that had not been heard. But what is even more alarming is that there are people who will actually be hosts to the virus but exhibit no sign whatsoever. Case in point has been in Italy, in the Lombardy area. What they have seen is that they've tried to determine patient zero. How did this person, now, the person who the infected person, the first patient zero met, had actually come from India. When this person was tested, they tested negative.
No symptoms.
No, fine.
None.
No symptoms, actually.
So now the really puzzling question is, so where on earth has it come from? You would also ask the question, the incubation period that we've been told about this virus, is it really 2 weeks? Okay? We asked the same question in this studio and asked, if you look at the really tough measures that are being taken, when a country takes measures that shuts down its entire economy, what is it that you're not being told about this virus? Because it's a serious shutting down.
Yep.
Major cities like Beijing are almost becoming ghost towns.
Yep.
Borders have been closed right round. Other countries are taking this measure. Now, the question that is being asked by people of WHO is, do we declare it a pandemic? And they're saying, not yet.
Not yet.
But there's a but. They're saying, but let's get prepared in case it is. Again, that speaks volumes. What is it about this virus that is known that we are not being told? Because these aren't steps which are being taken because it's a flu that will run its course and just disappear. No. Influenzas that have killed people by the millions, usually localized its killing in a particular area.
Right.
In a particular region. Now, this one has crossed borders. And the information that is available to the place that it's going to, it's catching them unawares because they had assumed that so long as you prevent people from moving to and from China, all right, or you put them in quarantine if they have been, it's suddenly being realized that these measures aren't adequate.
They aren't, because things, of course, are changing, right? Especially because what you said is that, you looked at, an individual that you would then be able to test and screen and see that they are suffering from 1, 2, 3 symptoms. But I think now this is the second case where we've seen infections having taken place and patient 0 then did not present with any kind of symptoms at some point. So this is obviously morphing into something that, unless then really being prepared for, we're not going to be able to handle. Because the truth be told, at the end of the day, if somebody doesn't present with any symptoms and makes their way into another country and could be infected, the chances of them infecting other people then become significantly higher because they don't present with any symptoms. And I do think that perhaps there's more information that we are not privy to. Because now we have infections taking place with people who didn't present with any symptoms.
China's slow approach to dealing with this, when alarm bells had actually been rung by their health practitioners, reminds me of our case here. We're talking about blood. Now, here we have a situation where we have facts and figures. We have blood that has not been screened. We're being told it has been destroyed. There's no evidence that it has.
We have a daily need for blood.
Daily.
In public hospitals.
We have individuals who are being sent away from hospital in need of critical surgeries, life-saving surgeries, but then cannot have them because there's no blood. The institution, the facility, tells you we don't have and sends you away.
Yeah.
That is in fact a life-saving measure. They didn't have blood.
Yeah.
What if they had? What if they had? And we've been told that what we seem to have here is a situation where you may have blood. And you know the reason?
And it's not been screened.
Yes. But the reason is because the funding that PEPFAR used to give for this particular service was cut. Now, there's a certain Dr. Patrick Amoth, the minister, who said that the 2019 to 2020 MOH allocated 958 Kenya shillings to KNBTS. Same sentence.
How much?
958 million Kenya shillings.
958 million?
Yes.
That's less than what has been consumed by BBI rallies so far.
Yes.
That's an entire year's budget for KNBTS.
Yes.
Yes.
It's actually inadequate. And if you look at the last funding or the last supply, 8,000 kits were supplied by PEPFAR. And that was adequate for Nairobi. But Nairobi doesn't just cater for itself. It caters for Thika, Machakos, Kisii, Nyeri, and Meru.
That's a huge population.
Yes. Now,
that's a huge population.
And if you look at the statistics that we had of the population of Kenya, if you look at those figures, you're more or less approaching the 2/3 mark of the population of this particular country. Okay? Same sentence, we are also then informed that according to Dr. Patrick Amoth, there were some problems with procurement. Coming from a Kenyan, it means...
there were some problems in procurement.
Yes. So, what... money allocated, details of how much of this money went to specific places, you're not told this. But again, you're told the moment you hear there was a problem in procurement, alarm bells ring.
Of course.
Because you wonder, okay, we understand. So did you procure or did you not procure?
It's very simple. It's one or the other, and we can't be. Look, now, of course, this is not a disaster in the making or an emergency that's going to come and catch us, off guard. This is something that's happening right now, and we can see it unfolding as the days go by, and probably getting deeper and deeper as we go along. But the thing is that, are we really prepared? We are not. Obviously, we know that in terms of a national budget, no money is coming out of the treasury to help, because interestingly enough, according to the chair of the health committee, the people at the ministry forgot or declined or failed to give them the information necessary to then input this very necessary element into the budget. So that's not going to happen, all right? We already know that external donor funding is not going to come in anymore. We are also aware that over the last 5 years, they were told it's kind of like weaning. We've been helping you all this time, now we're going to wean you from this process, and we expect that at some point you're going to be doing this on your own. It didn't happen. So you've got to ask yourself the question. You know you're not getting funding. You know that you didn't put it into the national budget. How do you expect them to expend their duties?
87.9 Spice FM, Mombasa.
Clear skies in Nairobi today for most of the day. 17 degrees, highs of 28 and lows of 16. It's 16 degrees and partly cloudy in Nyeri. Rain expected later with highs of 27. In Malindi,
classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads. You're listening to Spice FM.
27 degrees in Mombasa and partly
The
cloudy
weather with Spice FM.
33. In Nakuru, it is currently 11 degrees, a high of 27 and a low of 14, and it's going to be rain expected later in the evening. In Eldoret, at 14 degrees, partly cloudy conditions through the day with highs of 26 and lows of 14. Featherfield in East Africa, in Kampala, 21 degrees, mostly cloudy conditions, rain expected later with highs of 27 and lows of 21. In Dar es Salaam, at 28 degrees, rain expected later there as well with highs of 33 and lows of 26. And finally in Johannesburg, at 13 degrees, hazy conditions this morning, partly cloudy conditions to follow with highs of 24 and lows of 13.
Online, mobile, and on radio. Facebook at Spice FM KE. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
There is a deficit of 331. However, when PEPFAR was funding this, PEPFAR had contracted 142. If you do the math, there's still a shortage. Now, the 142 have been laid off because there is no more funding. But what is also of significance, if you look at this, you're being told there are places where testing is taking place. Meaning when the unscreened blood is actually acquired, there are places it's taken to for screening, Kisumu, Eldoret, and they mentioned the places that the Ministry of Health has no excuse whatsoever. The statement that we have heard being mentioned or being quoted as coming from the ministry that states that somehow the department responsible did not give them the information and so they didn't budget for it, that is undiluted gobbledygook. The information that the funders send out to the government is through the relevant ministries. And when it's health matters, it's the Ministry of Health. They, more than anybody else, know because they have been told. They knew that this period of time that we are now in was that period of time when there was a transition. And with every year, it's not as though they tell you and then they keep quiet. Every year you are reminded. Because for that funding, you may have 5-year funding. But with every year, it has to be renewed, which means there are certain conditionalities, as we call them, that have to be met. The ministry was informed at every stage. It doesn't wash, it cannot be bought. They knew. It is not a question of they hadn't been told. The person who is responsible, who was supposed to ensure that was done, should actually not just be without a job. The DCI should go and investigate who this person is, because if people die as a result of receiving unscreened blood, if people suffer because what needed to be done was not done, this person is directly responsible for those deaths.
The mindset of the government, CT, is the health ministry is just, one of those places where money comes from donors, money is spent. Money does not come from our budget. That's the mindset of the government, clearly, as you can see. We have our health sector is actually heavily subsidized by donors.
It is.
By design.
It is.
It has gotten to that point where the government knows the money is going to come from donors. So when you have a malaria outbreak somewhere in Baringo, let it run for a while so that we can mobilize more funds from donors so that we can deal with this malaria outbreak. In the meantime, people of Tiati and other constituencies in Baringo will continue dying and suffering because of a malaria outbreak. Same kind of thing now we are seeing. Blood. It's a matter. Why do we need to have such kind of a situation up to date? Why must PEPFAR be the one that is financing 100% our blood bank? 100%. Why should it? It's a mindset. And that the reason why you're seeing the DCI is not going there is because, coming from the very top, this is not yet an emergency. In fact, let's create this condition.
Essentially, not enough people have died.
Let's ensure that there is a lot of outcry from the public so that PEPFAR can sit back and see, my goodness, we don't want people to die.
In this case, unfortunately, they're
did.
not that kind of organization that you're going to arm twist them into going into
Maybe
a kind of policy that they would then want to change their mind about, because unfortunately as CT said, they did their due diligence and they did the warning. So when the 5 years then, because they said, look, in the next 5 years we are going to stop. At year 5 they said, remember what we said, the 5-year period has started, so please start getting things in order and we'll actually help you. We'll do a hand-holding exercise and walk along with you. Did anything happen? No. All right, year 4, and this is in a report,
you will
which
see.
Interestingly enough is housed at the Ministry of Health. And the chair of the Health Committee in Parliament has a copy of this report that came from PEPFAR. And they said, look, in year 4, these are the measures that we took around the country. We did, M&E. We went through and tried at least to make sure that people now had started collecting and at least had put measures in place to make sure that they had enough. Year 3, year 2, year 1, and they said, we are actually done.
This is a negotiation phase. The way City keeps talking about
it was not negotiation.
This is a negotiation.
You are going
what are
we negotiating?
No. You talk about the government
Future.
and the position they've taken.
Yes.
With who? They think they're going to negotiate.
Yes,
you will
they
see.
think they're going
This
to be
is
able
exactly
to
what they're trying
negotiate with PEPFAR.
This is what the government is trying to do. Trying to show the American government, if you abandon us now, we are in dire situations.
They've already abandoned.
And you will see that there will be some sort of, okay, so let's extend this for another 2 years just so that you guys can get your systems in place. This is what must be happening behind the scenes, just so that we can continue getting this cash coming in. Because the Ministry of Health, just like everybody who's come here and told us about the Ministry of Health has told us before, it's mafia house.
This aid is a crutch. And we get very comfortable with it until then you're not able to stand on your own 2 feet. So even after when you see that there's a semblance of a healing that has taken place, you're still going to depend on that crutch because you think that is the only way that's going to help you hobble along and cross the line. Unfortunately,
because that's where you make your money from.
This is the problem.
We acquire, when it comes to these matters, the government position is that of a professional beggar.
Yes.
Constantly.
Yes.
With the hands outstretched.
Because if you look at the funding, not just for blood donation, but if you look at the PEPFAR funding for HIV, the first response was an emergency and money was literally poured. Everything and anything that could be done was done in the first 5 years. Then the sustainability phase came in. Sustainability was, folks, we need to have this conversation that for this thing to work, the government needs to own it.
Yep.
So let's start the process. one of the processes that was started was something that was referred to as like the MOH direct hire. People who are in the care and treatment business part of their funding would be to employ people specifically and give them to the government to work for the government.
Yep.
Meaning, with time, you're supposed to absorb them into your system because when they're given to you, they're trained and they're given the specifics that will help this sector. You think anything of that sort happened?
Of course not. No. The government can't afford to pay those people that kind of salary that they were being paid by the fund.
Actually, they were being paid. No, what they were being paid was actually reasonably close. Let me tell you where the issue came in.
Mm-hmm.
First, there was a complaint was because they're MOH, they're being paid less than the people who are being funded directly. Then, those terms improved. So suddenly...
So rationalized for everyone.
So those who were in MOH were... What was due to them and what their colleagues who were directly in government were earning was more than even the funders were able to pay. So a new debate came about. So it now became an issue of money.
Yeah.
Fine. Even when that was rationalized, do you think the government, through the various ministries in the counties, took steps to actually absorb these people? A sweet for whoever gives me the right guess.
No.
3 sweets. Yes.
Bring it here. And this is, you know why it should even be a more of a tear-jerking thing is because it is upon the same elements that we are now anchoring the development of this country. Health being one of the four.
It's a gravy train. We've basically identified. If you look at it.
Come on. What are we talking about? I'm saying moving this country forward. The big four agenda is what is going to move this country forward.
Let's take this thing. Let's make it very internationally public so that everybody can see, this is what the country of Kenya is trying to do. Or let's come in and help this government. This government has really thought through this thing. So let's give them some funding so that they can roll out universal health coverage.
Do you think that
the
donors
pawns,
do you think that the donors and the funders are that stupid not to realize that what is really going on right under their noses? They can see.
Some of them
even when they had not pulled out.
Some of them are complicit.
No, even when they had not pulled out, it is in their report which they handed over and said, look, we actually said this thing was going to happen. We told you across board. We told you that this is what we are going to do. Do you think now they're going to sit back and say, actually, you know what? It's possible that we pulled out too soon and maybe we need help and maybe Kenya needs help.
I bet you this is what is going to happen. I bet you.
By the way, one of the things
you will see some sort of, some agreement, some extension for another 18 months or some 24 months like this so that, things can get into. In fact, we're going to be very strict with you guys this time, right? So we want to be given a team that we're going to work with to ensure this smooth transition. And there'll be a very high-level team that will be set up to work with the donors so that we ensure this smooth transition. 2 years, kick the can down the road.
You see, there are two things that happen here. One, a lot of what the funder requires is reports. And that we can provide.
Report.
Yeah. We can
report.
Write very well.
Oh, yes. Just... How do you want your report done? All right, so the PEPFAR guys, their report template is like this. The other guys from Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, their reporting is this.
You will be given a report. Now, if you actually go to, as we say, the ground, and you have a look at what the report stated vis-a-vis what you're seeing, you'll probably need a week's break just to sort of get this thing, wrap this thing around your head and say, okay, then go back again and say, okay, let me see.
What exactly were we talking about?
This isn't worlds apart. This is planets apart. There'll be people who have done exactly what they said they're going to do, and you will see it. Yep. But there are people who clearly sat under a tree and just cooked the figures. And it comes out. You'll find that there are CBOs who ostensibly are helping in this fight.
Yeah.
And where they get caught out again is their reporting. Because they will report that they have these employees whom they pay this. But in reality, that is a part-time worker who only comes on the weekends and is paid a stipend. But the report is that they're paid a salary.
Yes.
Now, PEPFAR sits back at some point, and they did and they have. And they look at all these reports and say, but wait, why is this name appearing in
the
2 or 3 other projects? Same ID, how is this happening? Then you give it a closer look.
And this person should be working in Bomet,
yes,
but they're also at the same time working in Tana River.
It would be very interesting to sit in on those PEPFAR evaluations, and you would have a real laugh when they might be asking themselves, or any other donor for that matter, and be asking themselves, What kind of sorcery is this?
No. All they
that
ask-
actually happens
I
to
think
whereby one thing is
the
not
valid
actually
question
what it
is,
actually seems to
with
be.
These Kenyans, are they omnipresent? Because it's clear that what
They're
they're
here
here
and they're here.
and here. Remember a report that the Auditor General presented, the one which brought a lot of hoo-ha in the Ministry of Health. One of the things that they pointed out was you had individuals who had actually received per diems for more days than we actually have in a year.
No, they received in advance for the next year.
We have 365 days.
Yeah.
Somebody received a per diem for 370 days.
They were working until January 10th.
And then there were others whose jobs required that they stay put in the ministry. They didn't travel. And yet,
But they received
according to the
the
report,
travel
they received
allowance.
per yes.
This is the stuff of books and fairy tales.
It's a story of mafia
But
house.
it's actually what's happening in a country in which we live and operate.
I get a
And
sense sometimes that some of these donors as well are part of the
in
game.
on the mix.
Of
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because
Keeps
you
them
can't tell
relevant.
me. Yeah.
How else am I going to work in this
In Africa.
beautiful country called Kenya and operate and work well?
I need
but
to keep coming. Actually, that's very interesting that you bring this out, because it's in a game you always have two sides. Even when you're playing tennis, there must be an opponent. You're playing against something or together with something else. It can't be that you operate in a vacuum. And in this case, the people who are not doing their job and somebody is needed. Even the person who is giving out, they need someone.
They need someone.
Absolutely.
7:30. Good morning. Let's take a look at traffic.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
All right, very bad multiple vehicle accident on Thika Superhighway this morning, as if things were not bad enough right around Utali College. You're being asked to approach with caution if you're using that road. Police and ambulances are on the scene right now trying to sort that out, so it's going to compound the traffic issues that we already see. Naivasha Road Junction, there is a disaster. It's traffic bumper to bumper. People are
Traffic.
crossing over all kinds of lanes, and there are no traffic police there to try and sort it out. So that's a mess that's going to affect the rest of the country as we know it already. Langata Road, it's already building up right around KWS, coming down towards the Timber roundabout. That's going to take you a little bit of time. But then getting off to the Valley Road is not so bad. Then you then approach the City Water roundabout, and then Valley Road is not so bad getting into the city. Mombasa Road is bad today. Moving extremely slowly and no sign in sight right now. Let us see what it looks like in about a half hour. Jogo Road is also not so bad getting into the CBD via the City Stadium roundabout. Let us know what you see. It seems that there seems to be pockets of disaster wherever you look here. So we'll see how it opens up and share the word. Spice it up on Twitter or give us a call. Let us know.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Under the Health Ministry, where reports coming out and the standard raising the sound media.
Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
They used to say, look, We have seen how the world is reacting to the Ebola virus, the kind of preparatory measures, the coronavirus rather, the kind of preparations that are being put in place. And wondering whether our country would have the same capacity to prepare.
You know, there's something you mentioned about such the things that we were speaking of, not being able to exist outside an ecosystem where it's actually being perpetrated by people who are supposed to represent the donor community. You see, for the longest time, funding, especially from America, whether it's research and then came to care and treatment, required that you have a partner in the U.S. It is U.S. taxpayers' money. Let's start there. So the partner was the individuals or the people responsible for ensuring that the requisite information through training is passed on. Now, over a period of time, of course, that information should have reached saturation point so people can take over. So the donor agencies understood this, and they made a push to have all these things localized, meaning you could access the fund directly and not necessarily with a partner. And they said that they're going to give it to local entities. Now, to underscore what you're saying, what then these partners did, they came and set up local NGOs.
So they became the local.
So they're local. Legally, they're local.
That math not
So they can now access the fund directly.
But they're local. The registration is local, they're local. And the people who actually are part and parcel of the board are local. You cannot say they're not local.
Yeah.
What is also not stated is that this funding, even let's say you're told you're getting $1 million for the funding, that is the funding amount. A portion of it remained to the partner in the US. Now, when you had a local NGO, a portion of it again would come to this local NGO. And then there'll be the person who is implementing. So the local NGO may be just like an administrative arm. So
then there's another implementer.
Yeah, they do the procurement for you. They make sure certain things are done.
Right.
Now, this is now where the rubber hits the road. You'll find, for instance, the salaries in these local NGOs are the same sort of terms that somebody would get in US dollars abroad. Translating to Kenya shillings, it is a lot of money. Remember, they don't do the care and treatment. They don't conduct research.
Nope.
They just oversee.
This is administrative.
overseeing.
Yes, but
and the M&E, really.
Yes, but they take a pile. The clincher, it is peopled by Kenyans. I think you see where I'm going with this one, don't you? So the person who's actually responsible for ensuring that this work gets done gets a fraction of that money. Yes. And that fraction never goes beyond 40%. If it does, you are truly fortunate. You'll find 1 or 2 cases of research directly where it may go beyond 50%. Okay? But in most cases, the bulk of the money actually more or less goes back.
Yeah.
And the one which is local is consumed by our erstwhile and fellow citizens in the manner that only Kenyans know how to consume, grind, and completely decimate any funding that comes to them.
So our healthcare system is basically a gravy train. This is what it is.
In many ways, it is a huge, huge gravy train.
And there's no way the honchos anywhere from the national level will ensure that this thing changes.
But
it's benefiting everybody else.
You know, if you look at the funding as has been reported in the paper over the years that we've had PEPFAR, it's a colossal amount of money. 700
billion.
It's a lot of money.
That is money that could have changed our entire healthcare system. Changed, meaning transformed it completely, so that we're talking
700 billion is a lot of money.
Yes, it's a lot of money.
What is the problem? Because
there's no problem.
No.
Well, why are you seeing a problem here? There's money.
Not anymore, clearly. What is
there is a problem. There is no money.
There's no more. Okay?
Yes.
No, but look, let's again take a trip into idealism at this point and say the way it should be. This is a system that has been handed over to you and other individuals to operate. Now, you have been given money to get certain things done. The money is given, it's done for a while, and then after some time, it's clear that you have the opportunity to steal or whatever it is, misappropriate, mismanagement, whatever fancy name you want to slap on it. But then people are suffering. the funding runs out. And instead of us to look for more innovative ways to make sure that people are taken care of, that essentially the lives of Kenyans are being taken care of, we're looking for more ways to get more money into the kitty that we can then go and steal.
Yes.
When we're talking about the lack of blood or the shortage of, in this case, the non-existence of, this is a serious matter. And somebody who then was tasked with a certain responsibility is clearly not doing their job.
Yes.
And they continue to sit in that
Or
office.
they're doing their job.
Or they continue to sit in that office, and there's a slap on the wrist for something that needs somebody to sit in a room where they should think about their life, reflect about their life.
Look, Ndu,
on a more permanent basis.
I am completely convinced in my
It is
conspiratorial
not
mind
right.
this morning that everything is working as it should.
No. People are suffering, people are dying.
Yes,
that is the
and
far
that is-
cry.
that is
a
what-
far cry
that is
from
what
how
should
things
be happening.
No, it shouldn't be happening.
That far cry that you're talking about, the people that should be are being sent back home now because they can't access emergency surgeries and such because of no blood, that is exactly what should be happening now. It's on paper. The script is playing out as it should.
so that
We get more money.
so that we can continue to misappropriate.
So we can
and
continue to
still
eat.
in this
Yes.
terrible cycle.
Everybody
And
else,
I
you
am
know,
saying-
you die. Yes, you don't have blood. Yes. In fact, I bet you there's somebody who's sitting somewhere in the Ministry of Health wondering, so why is this coronavirus not coming?
And you want to continue to
Why-
exist. And you want to continue
Why
to-
can't
and
we
you
have
want to
just one
continue-
confirmed case of coronavirus in this country? Do you know how much money we're going to get?
And it's okay
Just
to
one
continue
confirmed
to
case.
exist
There was
in a
coronavirus.
society
In fact, not
that
even at KNH.
sacrifices the lives of its people on the altar of impunity and
people?
thievery.
Who is people? Who cares
Yes,
for people?
that's what is happening.
Ndu,
Who cares for people?
what you've just said sounds very poetic.
It's true though.
It is absolutely true. But what Eric is saying and the way he's saying it is what we need to pay heed to. Because that's the stark reality. If you think for a single second that the people who manage our lives, is who are supposed to look after our lives, they don't give a hoot.
They don't care.
They don't.
And they continue to
Not
sit there.
one bit.
They continue to sit there.
Look, when people are sick, they represent money that will come to you.
Yeah.
Okay? So why is this coronavirus taking its time?
It
It
couldn't
should
have
be
happened
here.
What's
sooner.
wrong with this coronavirus? Does it not know what should be done? Why does the Ebola just stop at the borders? Why has it not come across? Because they look at the funding that they get. They forget the human catastrophe, the human element. Do you really think that if someone considered for a second, not even for a minute, what this money means to the uplifting of the lives of the citizenry, do you really think we'd be buffeted and we'd be confronted and hit with every single day of these
No
huge
way.
amounts of money
No
that keep going
way.
away? We wouldn't.
The kind of funding that our health system has received over the last, let's say, just one decade. Let's not even go beyond that.
That's one decade.
Just the last 10 years.
It's colossal.
Is enough to have transformed our healthcare system completely.
Yes. And where are we?
It's enough.
We're not even limping.
And
We are bedridden.
the people who are
Yeah,
at the helm,
crawl would be
the
good
people
right
who
about
are
now.
at the helm of our health system know this very well.
They
In
do.
fact, they are
They do.
serious experts. They know this very well.
They do. They do actually.
But
They
it
actually
does
do.
not matter.
It doesn't matter. Everything else
No.
other than that matters. But this ensuring that healthcare is actually provided for as it should, no. Even this, remember there's a 40 billion shilling tag from World Bank attached to universal healthcare. This, if you ask me, is where the focus is.
Yes.
And World Bank, as I said, they have kanyagad. They are not removing that money
money.
until they have seen certain things. Because they know that 40 billion will disappear like raindrops on hot soil. One moment it's dropped, the next moment there's no sign
disappeared.
whatsoever.
That it
And
even
they,
rained.
they will not realize it, these World Bank guys, but they'll release that cash.
And when they release the cash,
What do we need to do? Okay, so World Bank says we need to do this and this and,
and
the other.
you
We will do
justification
it.
strategy,
We will
here's
do
the
it.
document.
Money, come, 40 billion, gone.
And
Just
you,
like that.
And then when you ask,
Healthcare.
did World Bank give 40 billion? The answer is yes.
Yes.
Then you're told, well, part of it went to NHIF, part of it went, part of it went to this. Said, okay, for what purpose? Well, there are ongoing programs. Remember, yes, please understand.
We needed to upgrade some health
Yes.
centers. You know, if you go to vast parts of this country where we're talking about a population, for example, the pastoralist population,
Where the need
for a
is
very long
greatest.
time,
Yes.
they have been marginalized. So we needed to upgrade the healthcare system. That's
Then
where the money went.
OVC, all right?
Yes.
We needed to focus on this.
Yes.
And then
put those terminologies.
Let me tell
the
you.
PPRLQ and then the
And you want-
TLC. It happened.
And the WFP.
No.
Because you needed the TTUP. All that is going to be on
And
paper.
you're confused completely. eh? And then somebody throws in, and the epidemiology of all this, now you're lost completely. Say, okay, so imeenda kwa madaktari, eh? Okay.
Yeah.
So you mentioned madaktari, so what wanatibiwa ati, Okay.
Bas.
You don't even ask where. PEPFAR has something they call a country operational plan, COP. It is detailed.
This one is real.
Yes, it's real.
Okay.
COP is real.
COP is real.
It's real, yes.
Okay.
Every year, when we talk about COP, every year, PEPFAR will detail what they want to do for that particular year in tandem with the greater plan in the COP. Our priority is this. We want to focus on this. There's a time they say, no, we want the counseling process to be far-reaching. Okay, we want planned parenthood. We want this. They state it. The following year, the priority will actually. And you know why these priorities change? They look at the results that are presented and they say, okay, but these are people who mean well, and they tell you maybe now the COP needs to focus in this direction. Then our people come now with their own abbreviations, having looked at the COP.
Yes.
What we have decided with the UWKY, whatever it is that we are going to then another follow.
Starting from PEPFAR itself.
Yes.
PEPFAR.
Presidential, that one. Yes. So,
money will come, money will go. Our healthcare system will remain as it is. And people will feel very proud because they have made money getting airlifted out of the country.
What
Because they
sorcery?
can
What
afford it.
sorcery is this? That it's all right.
It's not
sorcery.
it's not
Omo,
sorcery.
This
All right.
juju strong.
Let
Because
it is juju.
All right.
this one very
Okay.
strong. In fact,
It is
it's so
juju.
strong it weak me because
My
I don't
sister,
understand.
Let me omo you also. Now, having omoed you, explain to me the country that you originally came from, all right? This is something that we are told, it is reported that you perfected a long time ago.
I'm telling you, to see that someone has been able to replicate it so well. It's one for the awards, for real. Disappearing acts. Things disappearing into thin air, and then you're able to give an explanation as to how this disappearance happened. So much so that the person who is listening to you actually believes this thing that you're saying, and then takes that information and goes and puts it into a document that then is now used to explain the thing countrywide. And everybody is there nodding in unison, like, we understand.
I want to give you a
Come
live
on.
example in the care and treatment program. One of the things you do with people who test positive is, first of all, you take them to a process of counseling, adherence counseling. You want them to understand what it means to actually be on this program on the drugs. Why? There's the understanding that our people know that when you're sick, you have to feel sick. And when you start feeling better, you are no longer sick. So you have to explain sickness has nothing to do with that. In fact, when you're feeling sick, you're really genuinely, you're not doing well at all, okay? Now, when you've taken them through this, you then explain what the drugs will do. You explain. And over time, you keep explaining. But there's a record for all this. Meaning, so there's a correlation between someone is tested and the time they actually put on medication. Now, then, when you start, there's something called follow-up. A problem arises when you have a record of these people. When you follow up, you can't find them. We normally call it loss to follow-up. I know of situations, because this is a situation that I worked in, where we took over the work. Funding changes, you're given different areas to work in, and we had this large number of people who are under care. So we decided, let's do an audit. Lost to follow up, there were large numbers of people we couldn't trace. So we said, let's look and see, maybe they died. These numbers don't usually die. Some deaths yet, but not really large numbers. Now, you then have to ask the question, do these people really exist and
in
were
the
they
first
really
place?
tested? Now, funding at some point was determined by the numbers of people tested and the number of people on care. Remember, it's a record. Now, here we were doing an audit and we were finding there is a serious disconnect. So you have to ask the question, were these people, were they just writing these figures? And then came what you call voluntary medical male circumcision, okay? Now, with voluntary medical male, VMMC, another acronym, okay, yes, VMMC.
Say it, Eric.
You wonder, we got to the point where a term was coined. These people are circumcising folders. Meaning, because you look for the human being behind the folder, nada.
Nothing.
You look again, nothing. Yeah. But the folders are there with the details. So clearly it's the folders that got circumcised. Now, now there are things that you look at and you wonder, where is it? At what point did people get so callous to the point that they don't realize that this nonsense that they're involved in themselves is have very direct consequences?
It's wickedness.
Yes.
No, that's what it is.
No.
It's wickedness.
Why don't you just call it? It's evil.
It really is. It's
Yes.
evil.
Yes.
That the life of somebody else to their detriment because of this action or
Doesn't
inaction by
matter.
yourself, it
Yes.
really doesn't matter. And we'll do it as many times as necessary
Doesn't
to
really
get
matter.
more of a shilling or whatever in your pocket. Or that you can continue driving that vehicle and people are dying, dropping off the face of the earth like flies, and it doesn't matter. That somebody's quality of life is compromised because of the fact that you do not do your job or that you look at it through the eyes of impunity. It cannot continue to be the case.
I'm going to open up the phone lines now, 0719-012-600, so you can chime in this conversation. It's 10 minutes to 8 o'clock. Good morning.
Online, mobile, and on radio. Instagram at Spice FM KE.
Africa, culture, sayings. Proverbs from the continent of Africa.
Teeth do not see poverty. What this proverb means is that even when circumstances are very difficult, people will still find something to smile about.
Is there a
Mature,
chance
intelligent talk every morning. Spice up
Having
yourself.
said what you said?
No. And I said it before. And of course it was the, don't
Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
But that's the state that we are in already.
But there's nothing to
We're already
panic.
operating in disaster. So
The
why are you
reality of
panicking?
the
Because the
situation
reality is that we
is
are
a
not
panic
ready.
situation.
We're already in panic. So when you say don't panic or don't make people feel jittery, that's where we are. And if you're not feeling that way, then there's something fundamentally wrong with a society
Look.
that doesn't understand really how grave things are. And this is where we have to get to the point whereby you're on the edge of your seat. Because with the way that we see things, with funds being bled dry, with impunity just basically eating away at every single state office that we have, and you're not operating in a state of panic, there is something
Panicking is
wrong.
not doing us any good, by the way. It would not do us any good.
Look at what
Panic and then what?
Actually,
You go to this health facility, you expect our
about
health
the state
system
of
to sort of
affairs.
us?
Because when you panic, you tend to open your mouth and make some loud noises in the direction of where this problem is coming from.
No, when you panic, you just become hysterical. Yeah, I think we don't need to panic. We need to be very, very keen and alert. about everything that we're doing.
But we are alert. We can see what's going on. We're quite alert. We're awake to it.
To noise.
Yeah. When you make noise, when they listen.
Listen, I was turning through these pages just to make sure that the statement I'm about to make actually bears some truth.
Mm-hmm.
Not a single mention of the locusts. They haven't gone anywhere. And this story of them being in China and the Chinese government releasing ducks to eat them up. Good for the Chinese and good for the ducks. But we are not talking about the ravages of the flooding. We're not talking about school children who to date haven't gone back to school. Lest we forget, that is a current and ongoing problem that has been pushed aside. Okay? Politics again has taken center stage.
It is BBI. How much have we spent on since Kisii from Kisii to Kakamega to Mombasa to Kitui
To
Garissa and Narok.
Yes.
I bet you close to 1 billion shillings is gone.
True.
If not over 1 billion
And
shillings.
there's a commission that was set up, which I believe they're being paid, isn't it?
The guys who are meeting, yes. What are they called? The task force? Not task force now. They have a new name.
Committee of experts.
Another new
like
name.
that.
Something.
Yes. But
Those guys they're getting paid. A lot of money is going into
salary,
these things.
They're paid when they travel.
If you gave 1 billion shillings to Kenya National Blood Transfusion Services,
it will change very many things.
what would happen? Let's go to the phone lines. Hussein is calling in from Nairobi. Good morning, Hussein.
Good morning, Eric,
Yes, how are you?
City, and Nduoko.
Good
How are you guys?
morning.
We are well,
We're
thank
fine.
you.
We're well.
Yes, I've actually been hearing the amazing conversations that we're having about this corona thing. But, I've been wondering the way we've been worried about how this government from the top, how they have been focusing on looting funds. I mean, not caring about the populace and all that. And right now, I'm a Muslim. And yesterday I was asking someone, the Hajj is coming, the annual Hajj is coming, I think at the end of this year.
Right?
All over the world, guys will be going to Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
We're talking about coronavirus in Iran.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
No one has actually thought about that. I don't know. So now, probably, we are going to wait for World Health Organization to advise us.
Yes.
So I don't know. I don't know what happens in this country. I don't know if we always wait to be told what to do.
We wait to be told by a big brother somewhere. So
Actually,
World Health Organization is going to have a conversation with Saudi Arabia, then they'll agree, and then Saudi Arabia will tell everybody. Then we will, at that point, your government will tell you what to do.
yes. Actually, I'm telling you, if you can imagine the kind who are actually the kind of people who are in the government right now, those guys are the ones who will be now shielding us against this pandemic,
Yep.
as you call it. I can't imagine what is going to happen to this country. I mean, we just need prayers.
Oh, yeah.
We do.
In this case, I believe there needs to be some kind of divine intervention
And
to help.
this point you mentioned is a truly valid one, because
It is.
if you look at Korea, there was a church group that went to visit one of their own who was unwell in hospital. Because they were a group and they congregate together. What has now happened, schools are being closed in Korea. They are banning gatherings, meaning they are beginning to take the sort of measures that China took.
Because of actions of one group.
One group.
And City, you mentioned something about a whole country like China shutting down the economy.
Yep.
They've shut it down, actually.
But now in Kenya, actually it's business as usual.
That's now.
Yes.
Yeah.
People have
So
to make
we are extremely reactive. Yeah.
No, we are hoping that it comes. You wait.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you
Have
very
a
much.
good day,
Thank
Zaid.
you.
Well, of course, we need to look at world. This is 2020. It's a big year in terms of world events. Of course, we know. Of course, I mean, just remembering now that the annual Hajj does take place. We know that the Summer Olympic Games are supposed to take place in June, July, in Japan. Of course, doubts have already been cast in terms of whether that is going to happen or not. A series of events that should have taken place in China and neighboring countries did not as a result of this. And we don't see this letting up. It's actually going downhill as opposed to stabilizing. We heard reports that a couple of days things had stabilized. Not the case. It has not stabilized. We still have 105 or more deaths every day. Every day.
In Italy, they are, you know how popular football is in that country?
Yep.
They are cancelling matches. They huge public gatherings are not being discussed. They're moving towards a point where they're just saying, stop.
Stop everything.
What Hussein has raised, though, is a
big deal.
Thing. And this conversation should be had.
Of course, because we're looking at hundreds of millions of people who are on their pilgrimage to the Hajj. For sure.
You know, Hussein, he didn't hit the nail on the head. He hit the entire hardware shop on the head.
Yes.
Yes.
It was a sledgehammer.
Kabza, because honestly, when you think about it, think of the optics. It is scary. If that small church group in Korea
shut down an entire country,
that amount of
this is the largest pilgrimage, human
pilgrimage known. Yes, and at the same time,
my goodness. Well, the conversation continues on our social media platforms, Spice FM KE on Facebook and Twitter, as well as YouTube. You can post your comment there because we are live streaming and we live stream this show every morning between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Coming up to 8 o'clock, let's take a look at the traffic, and then we switch gears a little bit and talk about something else.
Up your
still
life.
Crazy on Thika Road. This was, of course, because of the accident that took place a short while ago. That is trying to be sorted out. We also have that traffic is exacerbated by construction that's taking place at the pedestrian footbridges.
102.5 Spice FM.
Kisumu.
Kisumu.
Traffic situation. Things are moving a little bit better on Mombasa.
Traffic.
Road, but still, traffic is a bit of a mess. The southern and eastern bypass system connecting with Manhattan Road and then Karen and Bong Road is actually not so bad right now. Those looking at Kandula Road is actually very clear. Mombasa Road still have problems. Dover Road today looks a little bit better right around now. Nothing major to report right now, unless you see something that you should know about. Of course, we still have the mess that is Kiambu Road, and probably will be the same for some time. We'll be officially out of traffic now, which is how it looks. Spice FM, take me on Twitter. Give us a call. Let us know what you see.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man
also
in the
Kenya's
chair,
biggest
seasoned
conversation,
journalist,
94.4
news hound,
in
a
Nairobi,
man who
Malindi,
believes in punching up,
97.7 Nyeri,
not down.
94.9,
This is the
96.7 in
Situation
Eldoret,
Room,
Nakuru,
the only way to
96.0,
start
Kisumu,
your day.
102.5, and 87.9 in Mombasa. Well, we're talking about Ministry of Health, government in general, but let's just keep it Ministry of Health, right? Mafia House is big enough for us to deal with. And our preparedness. So, coronavirus is, of course, causing panic across the world. All other governments are panicking on this. Other governments are putting measures in place. Our government has told us that it has put measures in place. We have quarantine facilities at KNH, at all level 5 hospitals countrywide, at Mbagathi Hospital, and that's it.
That's all over the country.
That's all over the country.
Mbagathi, KNH, all over the country.
All over the country. And every county, we have the capacity to basically quarantine somebody.
But
and then after you start quarantining them, then you start saying, but you know, we need these test kits. But you know, we have a couple of 100 test kits that were given by WHO. Everything in our healthcare system must be given to us by somebody else. This is the kind of ministry that we have.
The government is procuring all necessary supplies, but the hiccups, we are told, by the people in charge of the blood transfusion process in this country, blood donation, okay? However, the only places where you can actually test this is Eldoret, Kisumu, and Mombasa. But
nice,
you can test it all over the country.
Yeah.
What on earth is that?
Yeah. 3 counties out of the 47 that exist is where you're able to test this. And we say that the entire country is covered. Who are we fooling?
And as Eric put it,
why do we continue to use this kind of language? Who's being
this
fooled
isn't
here?
something that you require, say, every 6 months. Daily.
Every
on a daily
day.
basis.
Daily. There are accidents. There are people who are unwell. There are people who need an operation daily.
I dare say that the reason why things have reached the fever pitch that they are at right now is because, questions have not been asked. The status quo has not been interrogated to the point whereby, you want to make some blanket statement, stand behind a microphone and have a presser and tell people this is what has happened. And people are not asking questions. Really, when you say the entire country is covered, please do tell. In this
Tell us
county, 1,
exactly
2,
where.
3, 4, 5, where can I find this particular facility? Because nobody is being put on the spot to answer these questions. Then they can get away with lying. Let's not even call it something else. It is lying. You're misrepresenting the true situation. You are lying about
lying
what
to
is
the
going
people.
on. You're
Let's go to the
lying to
phone
the
lines.
people, and you're not taking care of their best interests.
Solomon in Mombasa, good morning.
Good morning, guys.
Hi, Solomon.
You guys are talking too much about corona. Let's go know what is ailing us, and you can see how our health system is pathetic.
Mm-hmm.
There was a time I was sick, dengue fever in Nairobi.
Dengue.
I went to a dengue fever, and I went to a private hospital. I'll name it AR Upper Hill. Yeah, they did not have test kits to be able to know if I have dengue fever or it was chikungunya.
Mm-hmm.
They told me the test will take around 3 days. That thing kills in Mombasa.
Yeah.
Literally kills.
Yeah.
I had to take a flight back to Mombasa to go to Coast General, and I got the treatment immediately.
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of problem we have.
So at least the public facility has that, but it's because it's in
No,
Mombasa. If you're
I'm
in a
saying-
public facility in Nairobi,
I'll
maybe not.
die. Maybe I'll die. Because, see, the problem we have is not even about the test kits.
Mm.
The technical know-how of our medical practitioners.
Mm-hmm.
While in Ipima, they said, I just have fevers, it's okay. So you can imagine, someone, for example, someone who has come from maybe Mombasa for some holiday,
Yep.
get that dengue fever, go back to Nairobi. Yeah?
Or other parts of the country.
Remember, before these people realizes why this person is sick, he's already a customer at Lee's funeral homes.
Mm. True.
That's the kind of problem that you have in any kind of pandemic that you have. You find certain sections they know, but they don't share this kind of knowledge. And you see, if you don't share and these people are moving all around, you'll have a problem. And if, for example, if this corona comes and hits us, trust me, I don't know, Lee and the mortuary business, like yesterday I saw Meru are doing business in coffee. Yeah? So I don't know how
we'll not be able to handle it.
we'll not be able to handle it.
Thank you very much, Solomon.
No matter how much money is poured, you see, when it comes to health, the time taken for someone to be maybe healed and taken care of may be so short, even the money that we give out may not even help.
True.
Yes.
Let's go to Shani, who's also in Mombasa. Good morning, Shani.
Morning to you, man. How are you?
We're
Very
fine,
well,
thank you.
Now, there was a caller who called you, Hussein, I think Hussein.
Yes.
Now, he mentioned about Hajj.
Yes.
You know, I used to work there. I used to work there during Hajj. I used to drive a bus down there. They used to give us shots during Hajj. If you don't take those shots, you go to Hajj. You come back, you must take a disease.
Mm-hmm.
That's for sure.
And that's when there's no corona, right?
No, it's not corona.
Yeah. Normal.
You understand?
Yeah.
Whatever Hussein said is very, very bankable.
Yeah.
So, will it be looked into? I don't think so. You know, my uncle used to say, God help fools and babies. So, as long as we act foolish on this one, then we are in good hands.
It's going to hit us hard.
For the Olympic in Tokyo,
Yep.
Kenya is going to send some athletes. Didn't we go to Rio? We went to Rio.
Yep.
What was Rio during that time? You remember that disease that caused facial deformities on children?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right,
We
yes.
went to Rio. We came back. A lot of people were at the airport. You understand?
Yep.
Even some officials had to steal tickets from the athletes and give them to their families. That's how foolish we are.
Things are thick. Thank you very much, Shani.
Oh.
Thank you, Shani.
Thank you, Shani.
Frederick, hi.
Hi, how are you, Eric?
We're fine, thank you. How are you?
Good morning,
Yeah,
Frederick.
good to hear your voice. Good morning, Duo and City.
Good morning.
Hi.
Okay, I listened to the show. I'll start briefly on yesterday. I heard Iwatop and Ole Kiapi, Professor.
Yep.
And I think the biggest problem we have combining it with today's issues, is that we've got learned people, academias, who sit in big offices, and if they cannot do what they are trained to do, they go out and they normally have a statement that I cannot mention names. I love the media profession because we mention names. If you are going to summon a governor and put him on the bench, on the hot seat in the Situation Room, you will name things the way they are.
Yep.
All those big jobs, you mentioned the NSSF, the director of Kenyatta National, the big hospitals, the criteria to get to staff is high end, as in the threshold is so high.
Yep.
And then how comes we've got learned people in big offices and things don't work? Either it's our education system or morals or just the greed.
Yeah, everything combined.
Now,
yeah.
Exactly. Now, number one, the cost of medication in Kenya is very expensive. I have a friend who is a doctor in South Africa. He advised me, Frederick, don't fall sick in Kenya. You will die.
Wow.
Because full tests, like the guy who just called with chikungunya, the dengue fever, the full hemoglobin test should cost around 1,200. And that is only one test. I have a friend who had to be done a colonoscopy. It costs around 27,000. The cost of diagnosis alone is expensive.
Yeah.
And we have got an the NHIF, and these insurers who are tackling the universal health issue that the president also is in it. But we've got basic things that are not affordable. So before we even get into the NHIF, the contribution and the 1,000% increment, let's just get the basics right. Blood samples, just to get a diagnosis of malaria, to get your blood pressure, cost you a minimum of 500.
Yeah.
How many? And then we are told many Kenyans live below the poverty line. So many things are going wrong. Even the issue of coronavirus is like talking issues of a doctorate to a person who has not even done class 3. We just need to throw away that discussion altogether.
Way too up there. Let's deal with the basics.
Yes,
Thank you very much, Frederick.
So that is my contribution. Let's deal with the basics first.
Thanks, Frederick.
To put things into order. And let's mention names.
Just name names. Asante.
Yeah. Okay.
We're soon going to be having the head of the Kenya National Blood Transfusion Service coming here and, answering all these questions because, well, we have raised these questions more than once. We also, of course, ought to bring in head honchos at the Ministry of Health because...
NHIF.
And NHIF, because these are questions that need to be asked. These are questions that require answers. Answered.
But while we're at it, let's not leave NSSF.
Oh yeah, that's. If we
if
want to dig through the tunnel, we might as well.
No,
right?
This you don't need to dig. No, this is on the surface because we don't talk about it in the same way we're not talking about the locusts. But people who have contributed to NSSF all these years they have worked and who now seek to be given what is rightfully theirs. If you listen to the suffering, every once in a while the media brings up these stories. That's not a story you want to read about. It's depressing at the very least. But talking about the virus, you see, there's something that isn't being taken into consideration. I'm going to give you just 2 examples, all right? There was this Diamond Princess, the cruise ship that had a problem docking because people had been found with the coronavirus. A good portion of the people who work on this cruise ship are Filipinos. They're now going back home. You'll be told that they've been tested. This will happen. Remember, you've had situations of people who either came from Japan or Korea, but were told, they were old and they already had pre-existing conditions. So maybe the virus simply exacerbated an existing condition. That isn't alarming enough. South Korea has 28,000 US soldiers who have been posted there. Now, at some point, somebody will go home. What I'm saying is, this isn't as small or it isn't as containable as we're being made to believe. Because this is what we're being told. But if you look at the facts around it, or what we know in itself is alarming. What you deduce will cause a genuine panic.
Right.
Now then, so what is the reality?
What is it that you don't know?
Yeah,
that
what
would
is the
be
reality?
flooring at
Yes.
best. That would be flooring at least to know that really what then is the underbelly of all of this. Because in most situations, you're only told that which they think that you are able to, handle. Or information is released that, you need to know. The rest of this stuff, you really don't need to know. So we're not going to let you know so that we don't, of course, release the state of panic, as it were, into the general, into the general public. But you can be sure, I bet my bottom dollar, that there's a lot more under this that we're actually not being told about.
The WHO boss praised China and said, never in the history of mankind have we seen such a response.
From a government.
Never. It's never been seen. Having finished that statement, the next statement, one has to consider why it is the Chinese government was slow to act on the initial reports, because had they reacted to the initial report, the shutdown that we now see would
Of course
would not have been
Yeah,
necessary.
because taking into consideration the things that came into the limelight very quickly is that we were told about a date being the 31st of December is when, patient 0 actually was found. But then we came to find out that it was actually 30 days before that they found this out. So an entire month of this, observation, they were trying to figure out what it was. At that time, you're right, had that information then been released, or at least had they then now picked up the pace to make sure that the kind of, isolation and evacuation that we're seeing happened then, perhaps we would not be seeing the numbers that we're seeing now.
We were told that locusts are not even in the country. We were told
when they were not even here. This is true.
We were told. Yemen, Yemen is not around the corner. By the way,
right,
okay?
yeah.
It's across an ocean.
Yes, we're told they are now in Ethiopia. We're told. And we're told, given the wind direction trajectory, these things are coming to Kenya.
And because of the fact that
And
it
before
had
they
been
get to you,
raining
they'll
here.
pass through.
We were told. Yeah, okay.
Could we have done ducks and chicken in Gary?
We could have.
We could have done a lot of these things.
We could have done a lot of
We could have
things.
sprayed on the ground.
And even when they actually landed in Kenya, the hiccups that preceded and then followed the effort to try and determine it,
were laughable at best.
Of course. It's something that you basically just ask yourself, so exactly what is it that we're doing as a country or as a government? Are we serious? Are we not serious? Of course, 0719-012-600. The conversation continues on our social media platforms as well. Spice FM KE on Facebook, Spice FM KE on Twitter. Also, we live stream the show on www.spicefm.co.ke as well as our YouTube channel, Spice FM KE. Keep it right here because shortly we'll be talking to the leader of the Amani National Congress. This is the Honorable Musalia Mudavadi. He's joined us in the studio. Thank you very much, Mheshimiwa, for joining us. Let's take a short break, look at weather, and then we'll have a quick conversation with the leader of ANC. Of course, we know that they appeared before the BBI steering committee last week. They gave their feedback to the steering committee. We'll be discussing some of that. And then also, of course, discuss national politics, where ANC stands. We had the Secretary General of ANC a couple of days ago, and he mentioned a couple of things that the ANC is very, very, very keen and eager on doing. Good morning. This is the Situation Room at 17 minutes past 8.
Online, mobile, and on radio. Twitter at Spice FM KE. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads. You're listening to Spice FM.
16, it's going to be a warm day today. In Nyeri at 18 degrees, partly cloudy conditions.
The weather
Rain
with
expected
Spice
between
FM.
27 and lows of 16. In Malindi at 29 degrees, highs of 32, partly cloudy conditions on Tuesday. It's going to be raining in Kisumu later on with highs of 29 and lows of 20. At 28 degrees in Mombasa, it will be partly cloudy through the day with highs of 32 and lows of 27. It's cloudy conditions in Nakuru, rain expected later with highs of 27, 17 degrees in Eldoret, and mostly cloudy, lows of 14 and highs of 26. In East Africa, 21 degrees in Kampala, mostly cloudy conditions, highs of 27, highs of 33 with rain in the afternoon, at 29 degrees currently in Dar es Salaam. And finally in Johannesburg at 14 degrees, it's hazy through the day today with highs of 24 and lows of 30.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
This is the Situation Room, broadcasting from Nairobi to Mombasa, Kisumu, Eldoret, Nakuru, Nyeri, Malindi, worldwide. www.spice.
Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
He is the leader of the Amani National Congress. Asante sana for coming. Karibu.
Asante sana.
Karibu. Of course, this is your first time into this studio.
Yes, it's a very nice outfit, I must say. Good
Thank
job.
you. Asante sana.
The compliment is well received.
Good. You're setting the pace here. Very good. Right.
Voila. Now, getting straight into it. Last week, of course, you appeared before the steering committee of the BBI, and you gave the Amani National Congress's position on this. And of course, the first thing that you first of all said is, we have seen very many reports produced. We are very good at doing reports. And you raised, from the very onset, you raised the issue that you'd like this report to get implemented, at least, unlike others. What is it that you had in mind when you said this?
Well, I think I would like Kenyans, particularly those who occupy public space, either in leadership or in certain roles, to actually take the Kenyan people seriously. And therefore, when you have a TGRC report sitting in Parliament for too long, and it's not being deliberated on, even if it were to be discussed and then cast out, at least somebody has
at
talked
least
about
let some action be taken.
Yeah. But when you have such critical things just lying there and others, and then later the same problem catches up with us in a different age or a different time, then we are not doing justice to our people. And this is why I felt that without giving up hope, we should give a clear indication to the steering committee that we would like them to focus and really steer what this initiative was all about. Because as things stand now, it's like those of us who are in politics are hijacking the process. And it's dangerous.
I could shake your hand right now.
You know the issues that are being canvassed are issues that need to be thought through, maybe even carved out with a surgical blade, and then handed over to the BBI and say, this is the area that needs to be addressed. And as I've said, there's always somebody with a better idea than myself, somewhere out there. But let us help in crystallizing on these issues. What we are seeing at the BBI rallies is now beginning to degenerate into something else. The drumbeats of ethnic profiling are beginning to re-emerge. Our constitution already guarantees the right to property and where you can stay and your association. It's already guaranteed. So even if we are to address some historical injustices, it should not be at the expense of killing what has been protected.
The gains that we've made
in the Constitution. So these are some of the concerns that I have, and I would really encourage that the Haji Steering Committee comes to the front line on this matter, so that there can be structured ways of getting these processes there and looked at. They said their mandate is to validate what was already presented. I don't know whether those rallies
are validating anything. Initially, you were opposed to those rallies, Mheshimiwa, and then, of course, when they came to the Kakamega rally, you attended that rally, and after that, we've seen you attending the rallies. Now, what you're saying now is what you were saying before the Kakamega rally. But when you attend that rally, are you not also validating what is happening with
or endorsing it?
Or endorsing the rallies?
No. The idea is not to endorse. That is why I went with very specific, as a party, we went with very specific suggestions to
the steering committee.
To the steering committee, because we know that is where those views are supposed to be taken in. The others are people are now guising. They are guises of of a validation process.
Actually, essentially, they are calling a campaign process,
Yes.
a validation process.
There you are.
Yes, because it's campaigning. If you look at it, however you want to look at it, it's campaigning.
It's grandstanding and
using
positioning.
the BBI as the fuel for it, because under the cover of a BBI, you throw in the word BBI, you throw in the word, some nice word that means
Inclusivity.
T and everything. As I said, if it has webbed feet and it quacks,
It's not a donkey. It's not a donkey. I mean, but looking at this, you talked about the process having already been hijacked. Don't you think then in this case that, all attempts by the committee then are futile?
Well, this is what the committee needs to come out and tell us, because they have until end of June.
Yeah.
And they have released a timetable, and they're going to receive more views. They should also speak out to what they're seeing as a misdirection. Unfortunately, they have not really spoken out to say that some of the things we are seeing out there are not what we expect.
They wouldn't speak out against their own appointing authority. If you look at who's attending these rallies, who's spearheading the rallies.
And you see, those are the issues, because at the end of the day, this is where a little bit of the conflict comes in.
Yeah.
A noble idea that is now being distorted. Because it's like me telling you, I've appointed you to give me a report, but this is the report. I want you to...
So do you take it and then give it back to me?
Yeah. So these are the things that we need to clarify. And for instance, the position of, if you're expanding the structure of the executive, I did say, is there clarity? We need clarity in all these issues. So you want a prime minister. What kind of prime minister do you want?
Are we even clear of the system of government that they're talking about?
Now, these are all issues that we need to clarify. Yeah. Without clarity, we'll be creating a mongrel all the time.
With all of this, there seems to be an inner caucus that is operating, especially around these rallies and what's said to be the belief. And it seems that people who are not in the inner caucus, as it were, then have a lot of criticisms. Where would you place yourself in all of this?
I think I'm not the author of the BBI process, and I had some misgivings even from the beginning.
Yeah.
And this is why, for instance, when I was in Narok, I talked about the need for clarity. If we are going to make this an initiative that will be helpful to the people of Kenya, then clarity is important. And
would you have those same sentiments if you were leading this pack, as it were?
Yes. I would insist that let us be very specific. For instance, when you have a host of governors, I mean, what are they really saying ought to be done to improve efficiency in the government
of counties
that they run? You barely hear anything out of that,
They talk about regional governments.
No, but regional governments and the legality of it is embedded in our constitution. And I think what Mheshimiwa is saying is, do you hear them expounding on matters that are contained in the constitution that would make the life of the institutions and the bodies that they govern better?
Absolutely.
Of course not.
You don't hear it.
Of course
not even a drop, not even a word, not even a sentence.
With that happening, Mheshimiwa, well, we have a steering committee that is supposed to be working, professionally and above board, and then we've got an entire political machinery that is being led by none other than the appointing authority, right? Do you see BBI actually getting to a point where it delivers for us what it ought to be delivering?
Unless it's given clear direction and get it back into, it could lose the country. Yeah, we could. We are having now a situation where the politicians are doing what they know what to do best. Others are coming with hired crowds.
Yep.
And then planting them in some of these venues in different corners so that as somebody speaks, they're supposed to be chanting or shouting somebody down and so forth.
Yeah.
Now, that is completely getting taking Kenyans for a ride.
Right.
So this is why I say that the appointing authorities have an opportunity to get people to focus. We can't be a country that is permanently on living on rallies and people have got to work.
These are your contemporaries, Mheshimiwa.
Yeah.
They're your friends. Do
Yeah,
you tell
and
them when you meet with the president, when you meet with Raila Odinga, do you tell him, no,
I-
come on, let's do this?
I tell them. I speak to them.
What's
and
their
I tell
reaction
them,
to this?
They, of course.
They agree.
They say they agree. But I can tell you it's important that we focus. We don't have much time. Yeah.
Let me ask a different question, Mheshimiwa. ANC, no, let me start with ANC. Let's start with you. What one reads and what one hears, you are, for the larger part of our conversation, every Kenyan's lovable cousin. You are the friend one wishes to have. You are the person people feel comfortable with.
The safe pair of hands.
Yes, that's what you were termed as. ANC is I would call it a party that is yet to gain in strength. I say yet to gain in strength because this is now, I'm coming to my question. What is ANC doing to get a serious national presence? Why I'm saying this is, for your voice to be heard loudly in this country, ANC has to be a powerful party to reckon with. And right now, it isn't.
I share your sentiment that there's a lot of work to be done. I agree with you. I'm not running away from that.
Yes.
And one of the things that we are working on particularly is not to kill the profile of ANC as an issue-based party. Okay, that is one thing we really want to develop. Now, we also are reviewing our constitution as a party, very advanced, and in this we want to broaden our footprint through better integration of Kenyans of diverse backgrounds,
Yes.
so that it can become a stronger party. And I can tell you that what we are doing very systematically is designed to make ANC the party of choice by the time we get to 2022. Yes.
So this is systematically.
Yes.
When are we likely to see now the visual rollout of this strategy?
I think once we are through with our constitutional review process, and our target is that by May, some of these internal processes should be complete or well advanced. And I'll give you one other thing that we're doing as an example. One of our legislators is actually very advanced in the bill that deals with public debt management, which we want to present to the Kenyan people through the parliamentary process. We mentioned it to the BBI, but we will want Kenyans to support it because public debt has now become a major problem.
It's our issue.
Problem in this country.
No, it's a monster.
Yeah.
What would you say? I mean, if obviously you've talked about ANC being a party that's issue based. I mean, ideology based. What are some of those ideologies? I think it's important for for us to understand. What is it really at the crux of it all that ANC believes for this country?
You see, we would like to focus a lot on a well-functioning economy, matters economy. All right, good governance, but with very strong economic projections or targets. Because my view, and a lot of those in ANC who reflect on what Kenya is going through right now, unless we give sufficient attention to matters economy, we are headed for big crisis. Yeah.
Some say we're there already.
We are there, but it could get worse.
It could get to Greece level.
Yeah.
Greece crisis level. So your focus, of course, is like you're saying, is the economy. You've talked about public debt management, and you have an MP who's pushing this through the National Assembly. So this is the focus of the ANC.
That is one aspect.
One.
But economy, and I've just talked of debt as an issue.
As an issue,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Now, how about the others? Why don't we feel the ANC going out and advocating these issues more loudly and more, openly and, in more fora? So that it becomes very clear that when it comes to economy, the one party that's going to save us is the ANC. Because we still feel that, when you come out, the last time we saw you was at, I think, the Lyco Regency towards the end of last year, talking about the same thing. Then you take a gap, then you come and talk about it again. if you're taking these kind of gaps, we're going to forget about you. We will be focusing on the bulldozers.
Well, thank you for the advice. This is the only thing I can say. Thank you for the advice that you'd like to see, and it's true that maybe more aggression in terms of articulating these economic concerns.
Absolutely, the conditioning that's taking place by others in this market, as it will say, some serious stuff, And if we're looking at the economic pillar as something being very strong here, coming out of ANC, which seems to be the outcry from many a Kenyan at this point, then it's something that don't you think also that then needs to come out very strongly?
Oh yes, it will. It will. But thank you for the advice on this one.
Does ANC have a program for the youth?
Yes, we do. We have a program for the youth. We are nurturing that. We have even drafted the youth charter, working with the youth on what they think are their priorities. So we are very deep into developing the youth programs. We have been sending some of our youth leaders on programs through Oslo Foundation and others for further exposure, not just within the Kenyan scenario, but we are sending some of them out there to help them just cultivate these leadership skills.
That's good.
Yeah.
Now, this may be a private matter that you can't discuss on radio, but does ANC also have a concrete plan for ensuring that they have a serious war chest?
Well, that is what Kenyan politics is all about. Yes,
Yes, it is.
Resources are
Yes.
important.
Right.
Yes.
We have our own approaches to resource mobilization
Yes.
going forward.
Yes.
And we hope we shall be able to have sufficient resources to be able to mount a good campaign.
You know, the
People
resource-
have said that Kenyan elections have now become very, very expensive. And just over the last, say, 3 elections, the kind of cost that is associated with an election has risen tremendously. Why is it so?
The most expensive election in the world.
Why is Kenya's election
in the
so
world.
expensive?
Well, these are some of the things that I think proper analysis and research should help us deal with. But frankly speaking, I think it's just sheer greed in Kenya.
Whose greed? Voters' greed?
Both voters and even some of the players. Yeah, this is just sheer greed.
Expound on that, please.
Because you see, somebody tells you that he'll need to spend 50 million or 60 million in a constituency, frankly speaking. I've been a member of parliament.
For the
And you have
longest-
campaigned.
Yeah.
You never used that amount?
No.
No?
Yeah. So there's the whole factor around these resources has sometimes been exaggerated.
It's exaggerated.
Yeah.
How much did you spend in Kibra?
Maybe about 10 million.
Just about 10 million?
Yeah.
And that was enough to actually run and the entire campaign?
By the way, we didn't do too badly,
Right.
frankly speaking.
Yeah, you didn't.
Yeah,
You didn't. Your candidate got over 7,000 votes,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
But were you outbid by the others?
Outspent.
Outspent?
Perhaps. Clearly, you could see some of the parties really flashing a lot of merchandise all over the place, and others converting government houses into cafes. So there was a bit of you can say that, but was it their resources or was it state resources in some of these instances? Yeah, those are the fundamental questions.
Why haven't you raised those questions?
We did.
Right.
Oh yes,
They
during the
actually
campaign we
did.
did.
Even during the campaign.
During the
they did.
campaigns.
Yeah, we
They
did.
Now
did.
afterwards, like following up on this and ensuring that you get the right answers for that, that kind of question.
Those are the questions that now, when we talk about management of elections and we look at the IBC, okay, in this country and what it should be doing, and these are the questions that they should answer. Why is an election in Kenya too expensive?
Yeah.
Why do they demand so much money to run elections? We also must ask them that why is it that you are IBC you want to have a technology and you want us to have certain people manning your servers and so forth. But then, who procured their technology? It was not procured by IBC.
No.
It was procured through the Department of ICT. Now
in the government.
So you have to ask yourself certain
fundamental
questions.
Yeah.
So going forward, I think those are the conversations that BBI
ought to be addressing.
I think we're running into a dangerous situation where we talk about things that ought to be or ought to be asked as opposed to being done now, because like you said, I mean, we're running out of time, and the way in which I'm seeing it, with one rally after another, weekend after the next, before we know it, we're in the middle of the year, and then we get into elections proper. This is all going to be swept under the carpet.
This is why it is important that very clear reports or validation presentations are made to the BBI steering committee, so that they can focus and get experts now to help them distill and finish.
Mheshimiwa, when I was referring to resources, I wasn't thinking of financial resources. I was thinking of the one resource that is fundamental to any democracy or any government, and a resource that your party is pivoted, its existence is actually pivoted upon ideas and ideals. Because this is one sphere of our politics that is almost untouched. We politic and politic and politic. So herein lies a vacuum that no one seems to be exploiting, because what we are now discussing here, we hear it, as Eric mentioned, in spits, and then you go quiet. If this was a daily discourse, we would soon recognize ANC as the party that actually delves and deals with these. Why haven't you taken advantage of this opportunity, Mheshimiwa?
Well, I stand guided on this one. Let me say that we shall. You shall see more of us. You shall hear more of us.
Now let's talk about the man, Musalia Mudavadi, right? You've run for president before. You have joined coalitions. You have, done quite a bit. In 2013, you were played, so to speak, right? Getting into an agreement, and then suddenly that agreement is no longer on the table. You found yourself forming a coalition again in 2017, and soon after, your coalition partners are saying this is a dead marriage. And yet there you are. You're not even the one who has said, I'm walking out. Why is it that people find it so easy to play Musalia Mudavadi?
No, I don't think they find it easy to play me. The incident of 2013 is water under the bridge. I moved on. The issue around NASA, if you're to talk of NASA as a coalition, I think is slightly different, because when you say our coalition partners have walked away, who has? Officially, nobody has quit. Nobody.
Officially.
NASA exists.
Officially. NASA exists. It's a legal entity as a coalition.
But the Secretary General of one of the coalition partners has been here and has told us that thing is dead.
Then why don't they write a letter? Why doesn't that Secretary General write a letter?
Officially.
And exit.
Why do you want to stay in this coalition?
No. Why do they, if they say that it's gone, why aren't they pulling
out?
Why don't they pull the plug?
You think there's some benefit that they receive also from remaining members of this coalition?
Well, NASA had a very big constituency.
Massive, actually.
Yeah, and I think some of them are worried that they'll be seen as the ones who
jumped ship,
who abandoned.
So this is why they may be talking that way. But we say officially the agreement we signed was an agreement that said that if 3 political parties officially exit, then NASA ceases to exist.
How many are you in total?
We are 5.
And none of you has walked out officially?
None.
Why don't you want to walk out? Why doesn't the money? Why is the money staying in this coalition?
Remember, I'm the one who founded NASA.
Yes.
Yeah. So
you're not going to leave your baby behind.
That is the thing.
That's the crux of the matter.
Yeah. But in the process, we agreed and talked, and we had one of our members become the candidate.
Mm.
Yeah. But there are some aspects, there are obligations that were put into NASA. There were revenue sharing mechanisms and so forth, which unfortunately are not
being adhered
to. But discussions continue to try and resolve some of those issues. If it becomes impossible, maybe we'll go into an arbitration process.
Which is why I was asking that question. Why is it that they find it so easy to walk all over you? I mean, you founded this coalition.
But
you
remember,
founded NASA. NASA is
it's your baby, you've just said.
Yes, but
and then you're telling me that there are other coalition partners who are playing around with the money.
But let me ask the question.
But you see, Wiper is a member. Ford Kenya is a member. ODM is a member. ANC is a member. And the former governor of Bomet, his party Mashinani.
Chama cha Mashinani.
Yeah. So I cannot be guilty as one person on this. So if there are issues, it's because it's within the context of the entire coalition.
So you're saying there are matters that are being discussed that are, whose details are not available in the public domain.
Yes.
Yes. So essentially, what the public perceives to be the issue may not actually be the truth of the matter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it likely we'll have NASA as it stands today in 2022?
Politics is dynamic. It's possible NASA with a brand, assuming that the issues are resolved, we could still have NASA at that time.
Right.
But equally, we are now alive to the fact that there could be other coalition arrangements that would develop. And in any case, one of the things that I've also been highlighting is that we need to even look at these laws that may now call for post-election coalition arrangements with clarity, because right now some of them are very big.
KANU, are you working with KANU? There's been talk in the public domain that the new reinvigorating KANU with Powerform is going to work with ANC.
KANU at this point in time is affiliated more to Jubilee. You know, in the letters.
Yeah.
In the scheme of things as
it stands now.
Yes.
All right, but the dalliance that is going on amongst politicians within the context of the BBI has not yet translated into any coalition agreement.
Yeah.
Or any new coalition agreement.
Yes. It's still an initiative. All right. Basically to bring people together to discuss. But no new coalition has taken shape.
When we saw you take a helicopter ride with the president all the way to Garissa, of course you saw what happened soon after. You know, there was all this word that, finally Musalia is going to get. In fact, we know the National Treasury is empty, and he's been in that docket before. And then it fizzled out. What happened?
I was vindicated. It's because people tend to think that any time you're seen with the president, it's because there's a deal in the making.
Goodies.
Yeah.
I mean...
how long have you known the president?
It could just be a couple of guys taking a helicopter ride,
so
right?
Why were you going to Garissa?
Yeah.
You see, Kenya is... I'm a Kenyan. And I was invited to look at two things. One, the solar farm and how it has been developed by the Kenya Rural Electrification Authority. Then, on the other hand, there was the inauguration of the new military barracks. So these were national events, and I went to see what they had done.
You are a national leader and the head of a national party.
Precisely.
Yes.
So some of these things, and Kenyans and rumor mongering. You see, if we meet in the streets, shake your hand, they'll immediately say
City will be
City is being brought into Amani to ANC, but of course
they will not bother to find out. Do these people know each other, and if they have, for how long have they known each other? No, that man is being bought,
of course,
and is in Spice FM.
Yes. And these are the issues that need to be actually thought through by Kenyans. It's because you're trying to limit the freedom of association on very simple matters where people can just interact.
But you see, for the longest time,
politicians are very good at telling us this kind of thing.
But I think a lot of, experience feeds this narrative. Historically, that has been what people have seen. That when two national leaders, two well-known politicians, or three or four are in the company of one another, something is cooking. And then, of course, the public is fed with that thereafter. Can you blame people for thinking that way? Because they have seen it happen that way previously. It has been seen that's how it happens.
Well, I think all I can say is that let us broaden our minds as people. That sometimes these interactions have nothing to do with any...
They're just that.
Any deals that are being struck.
Right. They're just that. Yeah. And even when you have, some serious political differences, you're still friends.
Oh, yeah.
Yesterday we had Professor James Olekiapi here. You remember he ran against you in 2013.
Yes.
You beat him, right?
Yeah.
He's among those that you beat. And he was telling us, look, after the campaign period, after all that tension, you see the same people shaking hands and being very buddy with one another. And yet, the rest of us as people, we are the ones who have all these tensions amongst us. Why is it that you politicians find it very easy to raise the temperature and lower the temperature so easily, and then you leave us hanging?
Well, that it's a philosophical question. I don't know how to answer it. But if anything, I think citizens should learn. The ordinary Kenyan, the day-to-day voter should learn that this process of competition should never be elevated to levels where they get into enmity.
So Kenyans should not take things as they see them? Is that what you're saying? Because it could be presented in a certain way. So are you saying that Kenyans shouldn't
I think they
take
should.
it?
Kenyans should become keener
and start asking questions
and
look at the underbelly of issues?
And yes, absolutely.
This is what the BBI is supposed to be doing, to getting us to a point where we stop, looking at every electoral cycle and seeing us getting to violence. But then here we are, getting into 2022, in the midst of a BBI discussion, we are talking about certain tribes should not be occupying certain parts of the country.
I mean, where are we going with that?
You see, the dominant discourse, which is a precursor to any form of conditioning, can only be undone with the genesis of new discourse and a consistency of it over a same period, because it has to run interference with what is the dominant discourse. But you don't hear sufficient interference. You have civil rights groups who from time to time say interesting things, a rally here and there, a march here and there, and then it's like they go and take a breath, and they take it for a long time. So by the time they come back, people have even forgotten what the march was all about.
Yeah. Right.
So it now forms part of what people consider entertainment. So, they're at it again.
Let's see
so
what's going to happen today, right?
even the very content that they're trying to put across does not drive the message that is intended. You see, if you consider this discourse that we're discussing, you see, what we're doing in an intended way, we are furthering the discourse. Because the politics of the day seems to have taken a certain direction.
Yep.
And we, the media, by the way, we discussed this thing prior to coming, we said we contribute significantly to it, because if you look at the headlines like we have here, all right, and you look at The Nation, it's us who put these things out. So it dominates our mind. So everything else that is important doesn't take second place. It starts with fifth going backwards.
I've just been to your sister outfit studio, and I said exactly what you said. The fundamental question that we need to ask is that to what extent is the media contributing to this mediocrity that we talk about? I mean, frankly, it's a very serious issue. Yeah, because the analysis and what have you is sometimes thrown through the window.
And dogma is actually preferred and encouraged.
Precisely.
Yes.
Mheshimiwa, I want to thank you very much for coming. And just before we let you go, we've been discussing here on this show very many times and the kind of leadership that we need in this country. We say we need a reformist. We need a leader who thinks of Kenya first. A leader who ensures that things are sort of different. Are you that leader, Musalia Mudavadi?
Well, if you go by the track record of what I've been able to achieve before, yes, I'm that leader. I mean, I don't know how old you are, but
I'm in my fourth decade.
I pushed for serious liberalization of this economy and took very drastic steps. I pushed for I changed the law around the Central Bank of Kenya, reduced the tenure of the governor to 2 terms, changed the mandate of the CBK so that its focus was to contain inflation, apart from other aspects of monetary policy. I pushed for the creation of KRA, put the bill in Parliament. All the price controls that used to be in this economy, I pushed away. So all I can tell you is that I am up to the task. And I would like to see Kenyans and the entrepreneurship moving, but supported appropriately.
Mheshimiwa, what you say is true. It's 100%, 103% true. When you read this paper, you look at William, the Deputy President in the paper, you look at the former Prime Minister in the paper, they're not there accidentally. There are people who ensure that they're there. When you hear of Michael Joseph, you hear of Safaricom this, it's not by accident. What you've just said amounts to a phenomenal achievement that very few people in this country, even the current leadership, can claim to have brought into being.
But nobody knows.
Yes. If you're interested in politics as I am, you might know, but Kenyans have no clue. They're enjoying the benefits of things that you did. I'm not asking you to sack anybody. I am simply saying that you need, I'm being prescriptive, forgive me, Mheshimiwa, but surely there ought to be a greater effort in getting these things out in the public domain so that people actually get to know and know it consistently.
Maybe even throw a word to help CT there. We need to hear you blow your trumpet a little louder. Don't you think it needs to happen? Because just the list of things that you've talked about, and I'm sure that if you go through it with a fine-tooth comb, there's more that you've been able to do. But nobody hears it. How then can we say anybody's going to throw support behind something that they do not know?
We judge you by your silence.
Absolutely.
Or the lack of noise thereof. Make a little more noise.
Done.
There's some
Let me
people
not
who
argue with you.
There's some people who make noise over one thing that they've done.
Let me not argue with you on that.
Mheshimiwa Musalia Mudavadi, the leader of the Amani National Congress, thank you very much for joining us. Of course, we'll be inviting you again so we can come and discuss the Amani's programs. We can discuss national leadership and politics. Then we can also discuss, of course, Musalia Mudavadi. We expect to see the name Musalia Mudavadi in the 2022 ballot somewhere. Not this time, not being somewhere in the background of, pushing somebody else's coalition. But come back. I mean, let's have your name there.
I'll need your vote, my friend.
There it is.
You know how many you got in 2013? You can multiply that. Thank you very much and have a good day. Asante sana. This is a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thanks,
We've had
guys.
the leader, Musalia Mudavadi, who was in the studio. Let's take a short break and then we come back and get into the top of the hour. Good morning.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads. You're listening to Spice FM.
You know, as we look at the politics or look at things.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
What it is that people have actually
Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Yep.
Right.
Let's take a quick look at the traffic coming up to the top of the hour, 9 o'clock. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Of course, broadcasting from Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, Malindi, worldwide on www.spicefm.co.ke. And then we'll do a bit of a post-mortem on the interview that we've just heard with the Mali National Congress leader before we switch gears a little bit into the next aspect of the conversation. Remember, it continues on 0719 012 600. Good morning, 9 o'clock.
Things looking a little bit better wherever it is. Unfortunately, in Long Road, not so much. It's
Spice up your life.
One spot for 45 minutes, close to an hour.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Traffic is really crazy. From Carnival to Wilson,
Traffic.
the last 20 minutes on Langata Road, quite crazy. Naivasha Road also, of course, leading to Gong Road is chock-a-block. Coming from Kileleshwa or James Gishuru and trying to join anywhere in Westlands is an absolute mess. Seems that traffic on this side of the world has started after 8 o'clock. Mombasa Road, of course, looking a lot better than it was before. Some demonstrations seem to be happening in the city centre with tear gas being thrown. We don't know why, but we'll find out in a short while. There was an accident on the eastern bypass. A Matatu has hit a truck, so you need to approach with caution because we do have several injuries that have taken place there, and the police are on site. Spice it up, if you see anything else, let us know. Let's see how we can keep you moving and make things a little bit easier.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
So the question
More likable than Uhuru Kenyatta.
Yes, he is. He's easygoing.
On a personal level,
It's not politics, just as a person.
A guy.
He's a guy. He's a guy. The president, a guy you can hang out with. Musalia you can hang out with. But Musalia feels safer. Much, much safer.
You can trust him more.
He's your brother next door. He's your neighbor whom you can ask for salt. Uhuru is your neighbor whom you can ask for Roiko.
Well, whatever. What I loved about what Musalia has said is what we've been discussing about BBI, the politicization of BBI. Now, of course, it tells you that, yes, he's been attending these meetings and even just looking at the optics. In Narok, he entered after everybody else had entered. He's basically just trying to show you.
Not again. I know I have to be here, but okay, I'm not interested.
Okay, if I must, I'll be there. Fine. fine. But you see, it's those are the conversations that need to be raised as well. Look, we have a process. There's a steering committee. It's validating a report. And then there's politics that's now taking a completely different route, especially when you look at what happened in Narok. How do we safeguard this process?
You know, there's something called optics. If you actually met William Ruto in a public place, he's a very gregarious fellow, talkative, friendly. If you met Raila, even friendlier.
Yep.
But you see, that's not what we judge. It's after they've been friendly.
Then what?
Yes, thereafter, the things that are attributed to them. And that's why these optics are very, very important. It's actually very, very important to put across the image that you think will help you. Now, by simply not being very visible, there is a certain image that Musalia has cut. Now, when you're as visible as Raila, Uhuru, and Ruto,
for you to be that visible, then you must also have some other rough edge.
Believe me, something is going to be seen that
It's
you
a
probably
rough
wish
edge.
would not be seen.
Moi
Or would not be
Kibaki
discussed.
cut that image for a long time. Of
Yes,
a
he
safe
did.
pair of hands.
Yes, he did.
Even when he was vice president, he stayed. He was demoted. He was calm.
But did he not prove to be a pair of hands? By and large, if you're now
Eventually he did.
Yes, because that man genuinely focused on what the economy
On the
needed.
job at hand.
There was no question about it. You didn't doubt that this fellow didn't talk much about it, but you kept seeing it.
But also, he was very focused when he spoke about it. When Moi Kibaki had an opportunity to speak, he'd
He'd
speak
say
about
it.
the economy. This is what we need. We need to ensure that we can, collect domestically. We need to ensure that we can utilize what we are able to collect.
And the
we
message
need
was,
to
was
manage
never
ourselves better.
right,
It
and the message was
clear.
never diluted, and you were very sure about what his position was, and in terms of then what he did or what he was planning to do, of course, in tandem with the government. And I think this is advice that we've given, and I hope it's actually taken in the sense that, look, there's so much that you've done. I mean, the last 7 things that he mentioned, from KRA to term of governance,
How many people know any
how
of
many
that?
people can you say actually know that he was the gentleman
One.
behind the
And how many
spearheading
people
of
have
all
done
of this?
a fraction of
of what he has done. We have people touting and shouting all over the country for one thing that they may have not even done, but sat in a conversation about how it was going to then be rolled out, and then they shout about it for the next 10 years, and people now know them for it.
And then the things that they have done, which we can attribute to them, are not things you really want to discuss at great length.
Not to that extent.
Not to that extent.
Right. It was an interesting conversation. We hope to have him again so we can have a longer discussion on this. Ndu, shall we talk about regional integration?
Right. Of course, we see that you look at regional bodies around the world, whether it's in Africa, and you look at the EAC, you look at SADC, COMESA, ECOWAS, across the board, and you see that at the formation of these organizations, there was something that countries coming together were hoping to do. They were hoping to strengthen trade ties. They were hoping to open up markets and make sure that as a bloc, they were able then to do more, whether that was coming together as a force that could be reckoned with, to other regions within the continent, or then globally, and say coming together now helps us to do certain things on a certain kind of platform. But then at the same time, we saw that the next came out, and if you look at, if you're going to come home and look at one body specifically today, being the EAC, the East African Community at this point, and saying, really asking then the relevance of how far it has been able to go. Most recently, in November, there was supposed to be an extraordinary summit that was supposed to take place. There was a request for a postponement of the 41st extraordinary meeting of the EAC Council of Ministers that was scheduled to take place from 25th to 27th of February. And this comes off the neck of yet another decision to postpone 2 meetings that were supposed to then be held in January, and another one that was meant to be held in November. Of course, different countries having cited the reason why they feel postponement needed to take place. Coming from Rwanda, coming from South Sudan, and then later on coming from South Sudan again and Burundi. Of course, taking into consideration that many things were happening in South Sudan, which are still happening now, things happening in Rwanda, whereby they had certain things governance-wise that they needed to take care of, and then, of course, Burundi as well, having things that they needed to take care of, but a postponement of the same because of lack of quorum, which points to the fact that, there were more things, more pertinent, more important for individual countries that they needed to take care of, that they really didn't feel at this point, was important. Not important, but would take precedence over this meeting that had been called at a particular time. And I'm saying that it seems as we go along that there have been certain complaints, of course, in terms of importance that has been placed. Countries such as Kenya, for example, have complained that other countries are not taking it as seriously as they were. There are arrears of $100 million when it comes to, how much countries are contributing. And I'm saying that perhaps it's time to think again about regional bodies, about regional integration, vis-a-vis the conversations that we've been seeing where national sovereignty is concerned and what individual countries are trying to do for themselves as opposed to being part of a body. So we have a lot going on. Of course, the meeting that was supposed to take place is actually today, as we speak, is when the meeting is supposed to happen. But coming on 20th of February, this was postponed, and of course we have this most recent postponement coming out of South Sudan. Can be understood because as of Saturday, this is when a new government was formed and really
in South Sudan.
Mm. And in light of all this, we're not going to be able to come and have this meeting. Okay, so please hear that from us. Before that, it was them again asking for the postponement again because of certain things that were happening in the country.
Negotiations.
The negotiation stage. Certain things were going on.
What is the African community? What are we? An economic bloc?
An economic.
We are
EAC.
Yes.
We're supposed to actually be very many things.
Is it?
It's
Yeah,
looking
what is it?
for economic integration, political integration. We have
Customary and monetary,
everything.
Yes.
We're actually supposed to end at that level where we are integrated so well that even politically,
we're like one country.
We are one.
Now that is where the complication lies,
Mm-hmm.
because if all we're doing was finding, or we wanted to have an economic or monetary union, that isn't difficult to understand. It's also not even difficult to understand just an economic union. However, if you now want to make a free trade area, and then you want to bring in the politics, it gets genuinely complicated. It does. Look at the issue of Brexit. Because nationalistic identities will come into being. Now, this is what was the problem as was stated and has been argued by some regarding Kenya and Tanzania. Or other countries within East and Central Africa feeling that Kenya is too powerful and that it will perhaps take a central position in determining what happens. The Kenyans will probably argue differently and say, we are contributing more. And if you're contributing more, it means we have to have a bigger say. Now, these are discussions that are normal in such an understanding, and we even have a timetable as to what comes first. We'll integrate this way, and then move to this, and then move to the other. That roadmap is clear. And even if you look at the issue right now surrounding Burundi, it is true. Burundi has issues. Why do you want to go and discuss an issue that relates to economic integration when your own country is disintegrating?
When you have issues locally.
This is true because at this point, you're looking at a time when the East African community right now is trying to undertake a review of the treaty that brought them together in the first place. And we're talking about 2020 right now and saying, you know what, okay, the tenets that made us come together, right, that govern this bloc as we speak, accommodating emerging dynamics, like what we're talking about in Burundi, like what we're talking about in South Sudan, and also including, the admission of new members and saying we need to take a look at this again because since our inception, these things have changed and continue to change. Now, there are partners that are struggling and they're trying to say, okay, we need to review and align our own internal laws to accommodate this treaty.
So we can deal with them.
Absolutely. Now you can imagine that whole process of realigning your laws as a country and trying to look at things like state sovereignty and doing this so that you can then fit into this block of, an East African community. It's not easy. It's not easy. It's not something that you're going to go and
those
be able
are necessary
to broker
dynamics as well, though.
Right?
And I think looking at it, well, the fact that we are talking about South Sudan and Burundi as a EAC, it's testament that the EAC has succeeded. It started off as the 3 countries, then it went on into Rwanda. Then we've looked at other people coming and applying, wanting to join and become members. It's testament that this thing is actually working. Now, of course, with that and the 2 postponements, the 3 postponements because of Burundi and South Sudan, you can understand why. The dynamics of that would be all right. So do we want to continue with this meeting in the absence of our brothers who are going through 1 or 2 issues or who are sorting out 1 or 2 issues? No, let's postpone. Let's wait for them so they can come in. Well, at the same time, I think what you're saying, yes, it's important to review both internally, even have those countries look at their own laws so that their laws can allow the EAC to come and have a say in how they're running their affairs. Because what's the point of having South Sudan as a member if at some point they can tell you, you guys stay in Arusha. This is a Juba issue. This one we are dealing, this one, it's me and my brother, Machar. Keep off. There's no point.
When you look at the issues that dogged Somalians still do for the longest time, if you attended, and I did, meetings that were supposed to try and find some pathway towards peace, the constant dialogue that you'd hear from the delegates, they'd say, we actually want to be left alone to just sort out these things ourselves. Okay, we had this meeting, you've called us, we want to talk to you, but in reality, having done this, let us find a path that will work for us. So don't come and start telling us now how to do it. Talk to us in this forum, because we are differing people here, but when we get there, we want to sort these things out among ourselves. The truth of the matter is, we don't even know what it is that really brings about the disintegration of many of these countries, because they're internal. And you could argue that when people have that particular discourse, they have a point because they, more than anybody else, knows what has brought about the problems that they have. And because they're the ones who know, they are the only ones who will also know how to go about resolving it. But sometimes they need a helping hand, because often that's what they've been trying to do and they've been failing. So surely a little intervention will be useful. Remember, there are those who've argued that sometimes when a country has an internal issue, let them fight to a standstill.
This is the thing, Bill, because then you now have countries like Kenya and Tanzania who are saying, because we have to look at it, regardless of what another country is going through at the time, this is the thing, that they came together despite this. So you have Kenya and Tanzania, for example, who are the best in terms of remittances, and they have basically said, we are going to slow down our payments, and we're doing this to express our displeasure with the conduct of other members. The conduct of other members being that you can come 5 days before a meeting is supposed to take place or an extraordinary summit is supposed to take place and say, well, actually, we're trying to sort out things on our side. So push it a couple of months. Kenya and Tanzania have said, no, okay, in that case,
so getting impatient.
In that case, you want to do that, then we are not also going to send forth our money. This is a real conversation that's taking place now. The debate is real, the discussion is happening, and people are saying, okay, you're not taking it seriously.
Kenya
we too are going to focus. There needs to be a handshake somewhere, right? We too are going to focus on our own countries.
Get priority, like we need a task force.
So Kenya and Tanzania have said, okay, you have issues that you need to handle as South Sudan, as Burundi. We also have issues that we need to handle. And because of that, our remittances, we're going to slow down on them.
Let's look at weather and then we'll continue the conversation. 17 minutes after 9 o'clock in the morning.
Mostly sunny conditions in Nairobi today at 22 degrees. Expect a high of 28. And when it gets lower, it'll be at 16. 21 degrees in Nyeri. Partly cloudy conditions and rain expected later with highs of 27.
The weather with
it's 30
Spice
degrees
FM.
in Malindi. Highs of 33 today. Partly cloudy conditions through the day. Rain expected in Kisumu with highs of 29 and lows of 21. In Mombasa at 30 degrees. Highs of 33 and lows of 27. Partly cloudy conditions. In Nakuru at 18, it's going to be mostly cloudy today and possibility of rain later on in the evening. 18 degrees in Eldoret and mostly cloudy with highs of 26 and lows of 14. In East Africa at 21 degrees, it's cloudy conditions all through in Kampala. Rain expected later with highs of 27 and lows of 21. 31 degrees in Dar es Salaam, rain expected through the day, partly cloudy conditions currently with highs of 33 and lows of 26. And right in Johannesburg at 16 degrees, hazy conditions through the day, 24 the high and the low of 38. Take a quick look in Lagos, 28 degrees, it's clear skies, and we're looking at rainy conditions later, with highs of 34 and lows of 26.
Broadcasting worldwide, Spice FM. The 90s have never sounded so good.
Favorite songs of the 1990s.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
So what again are you saying?
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Operate this thing in the first place, because clearly the sound bells have rung that nations are not happy. There's a bit of uncomfortability in the way things have been run, and it's very easy for then people to come and say, "Well, I've got this going on in my backyard. I'm not going to come and sit and talk about how we're going to come together regionally." So it's actually time to think about it and say, "Okay,
but what do they have
perhaps
in
we
mind?
need to change the way we need to look at."
What exactly do we need to change, though? What is it that, like, when there's those countries that are saying, perhaps we need to review? What's the game plan? What is it that they want?
Well, sure, they want to say, of course, definitely is going to be a clause that says, when things are going on with me, the rest of the region needs to understand that I'm not going to be able to show up. But look at South Sudan, for example, the entering of a new government. Is it really that they're going to come and talk about regional integration when things in their backyard are not in order? Of course, you want to look at that. But then again, you have countries like Kenya who are saying, well, you know what? We have drama going on, but we've kept it together, right? We have kept our remittances up to date. We are in 100 million shillings arrears as a collective body because some member states are not paying. So who is it? And then you call us the bulldozers. It's happened very many times. Tanzania, of course, having blamed Kenya for bulldozing their way through the community, whether on a
so who's
macro
not paying,
or a micro
by the way?
scale.
Who's not paying? The oil-rich South Sudan is not paying.
They didn't have a government until Saturday.
They had a government.
They didn't have a government.
They have a
Saturday.
government.
So I mean, they were not able to. What were it was not a priority for them at that point to remit. It was not a priority for Burundi to remit when they had clashes that they had along the way.
Somebody could argue that that's an excuse.
That's just an excuse.
This is the thing, and this is what Kenya is saying. Those are excuses. We have issues as well.
But
just
I think
because you have
even more
Riek Machar who's
importantly,
supposed come on.
Even more importantly, there are discussions that these people have that we do not know of. All right, by the time a country is making the pronouncements Kenya is making, I am certain there's a lot more that we don't know.
Yes.
Because, look, we are neighbors, we are into this thing because we can see the benefit. So there'll be many, many discussions before such a pronouncement is made. I'm sure they have tried everything. They said, why don't we do this? Why don't we try this? Why don't I even pay for you and you can pay later? Why don't we... It's discussed.
Of course, it's discussed, and I think one of the main things that comes out of this is that when the community came together, there was the agreement that certain countries, of course, were going to remit a certain amount of money, whether it was annually, whatever it was. And the reason for bringing this money together was to make sure that certain projects then were established, for the smooth running of the community, whether it was trade barriers being dropped, where it was open markets being established, whatever it was, single travel document within the community. Infrastructure development from one country to the other, whatever it was. But now, with certain countries being in default and certain countries being seen to be the bulldozer, if you would like, then you understand that some of these projects stall. And this is now the problem, that there are quite a number of projects within the community that have not been able to take off because, remittances have not been made on the part of some countries.
Remittances are
now,
not a problem.
Some
They are a
countries,
symptom.
Now, some countries would say, well, what am I going to deal with? The remittance to a community, or am I going to deal with what's happening in my backyard? And that is what has come out, specifically, of course, from South Sudan and Burundi. It has been very clear.
If you consider the economic bloc, or basically the regional bloc, important, then it should not be even a question. Yes,
this is the thing.
We are dealing with whatever we're dealing with, but also at the same time we can.
But more importantly, this is money you plan for.
Yes.
Just like you plan for other things within your economy. It's something you plan for.
Whether things are in a shambles
it
or
doesn't
not.
matter. This one we're going to pay World Bank. This one we're going to say the Chinese World Bank. This one we're going to pay whoever it is. We know what we owe, and there's a ministry. These countries, South Sudan was at war. It hadn't collapsed. It's just an extended disagreement, right? People were still going to Juba.
There's a government in place.
Yes, there was a government in place.
Ministers of government.
It's not as though we were back to a situation where you don't even know who's in charge.
Yeah.
You don't know who's up. We knew who was in charge. We knew that there were things that were functioning in that government. How on earth then could they talk about peace and the issue of the presidency is not in discussion? Because there was a president.
Yeah.
You're now discussing about the three other deputy or vice presidents.
So I think what is very clear that for a lot, then it is not a priority. This East Africa community that, of course, initially was instituted, that was going to then help member states, has over time clearly shown that for a lot of people, for a number of states, is not a priority. As in, all right, it's going to carry on anyway. Some people are going to attend, but you understand the meetings through which a lot of these deliberations take place, and then a lot of these enactments come about as a result
where
of
the approvals happen.
Where approvals happen. These
at
meetings
the
are not
heads of
taking
state
place.
Summits.
The summits are not taking place. There have been postponements since November, December, January,
Presidents
February,
are not meeting.
March. Presidents are not meeting, and Sudan
And a
has
summit
said,
cannot take place unless all members are present.
exactly.
This is
Even
the
if
problem.
one member
is
unavailable, the summit will not take place. And South Sudan has said, "What? Give us a call sometime in March, and maybe we'll be able to, meet." But for now, no, absolutely, we cannot. So this is the
we
problem.
admitted them too soon. Well, I'm saying we. Maybe the original members of the EAC admitted these are the new countries too soon. Probably a lot more should have been considered. In terms of, so yes, you've applied, you'd like to join, let's give you some, grace period, like 5-year grace period, within which now you join slowly and join us. Not just saying that you've applied. In this, the next summit is supposed to discuss the application by the DRC to join the EAC. Of course, if you're sitting there as the other 6, you're thinking, my goodness, we have access to that entire DRC, then let's just admit them.
Let's admit them.
It makes us bigger. But probably we should just take it slower.
Well, I do agree that these things take time. I think about the ECOWAS, and I remember being a child, and we talked about a common document within which to travel. I think this came into being when I was graduating from university. It took easily 12 years for that to happen, that I can now travel with my passport.
Our EAC passport has taken very many years.
Exactly.
Well.
I do agree that these things take time.
Not only that, they take time because they're discussions that involve looking at details of each of these things. So when they ratify and agree on one and then set into motion, a lot of discussion has taken place. Then they move on to the next one. Even these issues of payment, Burundi has had problems for the longest time.
Yes, they have.
South Sudan has had problems for the longest time. Now, with time, what you find is now the optics of it, all right? By the time people who have had an understanding right from the very beginning and have walked that path, when they get to the point where they're saying, for instance, we all have to be there in order to ratify things, the reason is because they've had an experience of decisions being made and somebody says, I wasn't there.
And somebody comes and says, how did you then do this when you did it when in my absence?
All these things have been born out of experience. So when Kenya now comes out and talks about what they are, just at the beginning of this particular segment, we were talking about the likability of our leaders. And if you think about it seriously, it's not the likability we're discussing, it's the optics. Because there's what is portrayed in the public domain. If you were to have that discussion with that person in a setting where it's just the two of you talking, you'd actually ask,
much different.
what is it, that person that I read about or hear about, how is it that this person is so different? Sometimes also, it's how they manifest, say, their friendliness. There are people who are effusive. Like the president is an effusive fellow, all right? Some people like Musal Mudavadi may not be effusive, but he's equally friendly. Effusive, meaning effusive, meaning the person gushes out with you can see he's vibrant, he's gregarious, he's outgoing. Okay, someone like the deputy president is also outgoing. Raila Odinga is not really outgoing.
He's not effusive.
Not particularly, but humorous. Yes. But then again, all I'm saying is, and then if you present humor, and that is what you're known by, people consider you to be humorous. But even if you don't, it doesn't mean you're not humorous.
No, it doesn't.
There are people whose humor is in their heads. They always find something funny, but they retain it. It's optics. Now here, the optics are, Burundi have a problem. Burundi have had a problem for the longest time. Now it's a question, when you say they have a problem, I'd say which one? Tanzania have their problems.
Yeah. Right.
They've been jailing journalists left, right and center. Now they're releasing them. It's just left. We haven't gone to right and center.
Right and center. Just we'll take the journalists on the left. Right. That one.
Those are not problems.
Yes. Southern Sudan, for the longest time, have been disagreeing seriously, and they have decided to determine...
Those are problems.
Yes. They've been shooting and killing each other.
Oh, yes.
Okay? That's what they were doing before. They came to an understanding and then decided, why don't we resume hostilities?
Yeah, let's start it again.
As we discuss these matters of peace.
Right. Okay? But then again, what one would describe as a problem, who is anyone to say that what your issue is, mine is less of an issue? Exactly. It wouldn't necessarily be. Kenya could talk about the fact that they have so many problems.
We have BBI we're dealing with.
So many. We have locusts. We have, the threat of... I mean, look, there could be that the conversation could be had. This is the reason why they said, let's then have a look at this treaty that put us together in the first place. And by the time you're having that conversation, it's gotten to the point where we're saying, okay, clearly, things are not working as we had originally envisioned.
But for me,
right?
by the way, I can completely see the case for postponing this particular one because of South Sudan. This one, I think
South Sudan is a big economy.
I think this one is justified. I mean, they've just had entered into a peace deal. They're now forming a new government. This is justified to say, let's sort out this issue. However, South Sudan should be saying, can we move it to this particular specific date? We commit.
This is what they interestingly enough, they said in around March. In around March, we can have the conversation. They've not committed, but they said, let's see give us about a month.
Let's see whether this peace holds.
Give us about a month. Let's see what things look like, and then we'll get back to
also
it. So they're in limbo.
Also understandable. You don't really trust Ria Kasha when it comes to clothes. He made demand that I'm the one who's going to attend that summit. It's a heads of state and government. So,
it's one thing to have the optics of having a union. It's quite another to actually put it into practice and to make it a government of union.
9:30. Let's take a look at traffic, and then the conversation continues. We'll be opening up the phone lines 0719-0126 and the Hindu voice saying, it's about time that we started to review the body. And let's look into and thinking that exactly what
it's time to rethink. I think so. By the time they're looking at what made up this treaty in the first place, then probably it's time to rethink how then it's supposed to operate as a regional body. Absolutely.
By the way, Brexit was rethinking.
It was rethinking and it came to be.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads. You're listening to Spice FM.
One end of the CBD to another is what is causing problems today. Quite a lot of traffic right in the center of
Traffic.
Coming off of Thika Road, a little bit better now. Of course, understanding that President Uhuru Kenyatta and the President of the Federal Republic of Germany will be heading to Kiambu. So Kiambu College of Science and Technology. So that's institute rather. It's going to take some time. So those roads are being heavily monitored right around now. Naivasha Road, of course, is still giving us problems trying to get onto Ngong Road today. So that's causing a bit of a problem. So where we see little remnants of traffic on Mombasa Road is chock-a-block on Naivasha Road, Ngong Road, and we're going to see an issue right around Ngong Road in a very short while. Let us know what you see. Eastern and Southern bypass is still open now, folks. If you can see something that we should know about, Spice FM.
It could be this one.
I can touch the sky. I know that I will.
Or maybe this one.
I'm walking away.
Maybe even this one.
Hit me, baby, one more time.
More of the timeless and greatest hits you love. Mature, intelligent talk every morning.
0719.
Spice up yourself.
0719.
Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
For example, we're talking about regional bodies and regional integration. Apart from EAC, do we have a problem with any other?
Well, of course, I think
COMESA is fine.
Well, COMESA is doing all right. Of course, SADC is doing all right. Look, if we look at,
SADC guys are doing okay.
So no big deal,
as,
right?
As, as EAC, we have to click when it says SADC guys are doing fine.
Are they really doing okay?
Maybe say Haibo. Let me get to that. This is the thing. On the face of it, does look like they're doing okay. But if we look at reports that we've seen over time, SADC and especially COMESA, and asking questions in terms of what has been happening in the southern part of Africa, and then those countries that come together then as member states, is everybody on the same page? And the answer is no, right? Of course, common markets, and of course this is hinged on trade, and we come at a time where if you want to look at the temperature globally, most countries are hinged on this thing of national interests and sovereignty. So everybody's trying to get their own, juxtaposed against to what has been the case before, where they're saying our strength is in our numbers, our strength is in us coming together, and then coming into 2018, 2019, 2020, when it has shifted to I can actually carve out a niche for myself as an organization.
I'm stronger
I'm stronger on my own. And this is something that has come out very clearly across the world, right? If you want to look at NATO, for example, the NATO summit that took place in the US, Trump basically told the guys, oh, okay, what were you guys discussing? Oh, sure. We agree. No problem. Carry on. No problem. He himself did not attend the last NATO summit. Didn't.
Yeah.
Just basically found out, okay, what happened? Okay, no problem. France and Belgium were up in arms, and they were saying, literally, up in arms saying, why? We don't have enough representation. What is going on? Nobody's really interested. So this could be the case. Regional bodies around.
That's
this was their
point
contention.
that Trump was making to them.
This was
he's been trying to make a point to all these bodies.
Of course they were, but this was the contention that nobody's taking it seriously anymore.
I think
France and Belgium, these were the words that they used, that it was not being taken seriously. Of course, the United States being the person that they were pointing the finger at.
Yeah.
But they said that, where we were 10 years ago.
We carry you on our shoulder for too long.
Yeah.
Go away.
Precisely. So it's not that they're not taking it seriously. You can't expect to be making that level of noise, and yet what you're contributing is pittance.
What is it?
It's pittance
what are you bringing to the table?
To the rest.
So you're being asked what? You're making noise so that we can carry you. It's like, Nani, why have you stopped carrying me?
Yeah.
Don't put me down now.
What's wrong with you? You know how difficult it is to walk.
You don't take me seriously.
You don't take me seriously. Huh?
Am I not important to you anymore?
Okay.
Don't you enjoy carrying me?
What is this really going on about?
Yes.
Well, see, this is the thing. So I think around the world, we see that regional bodies, regional institutions are actually becoming kind of lackluster and losing kind of the grip that they had, whereby previously it was that we can come together and we can do something significant. Now, as opposed to I can have these bilateral agreements country to the next, and I'll actually be fine. And then that trumps what I would be able to do in a group. If I can get my own and move further,
perhaps
then
it's
why
just
not?
lethargy as well. If you look at like now the 4 pillars of the EAC bloc: customs union, a common market, a monetary union, political confederation that's going to transition to political federation. Really, these are not things that are going to take place in a generation. So you get to a point where people are just feeling, so what is this that we keep doing? So we are members of EAC so we can read the budget on the same day.
You know, for the longest time,
what is it?
People didn't even understand the advantage of commerce, the advantages of commerce. And the reason is because, well, one, people don't usually want to bother to understand. So anyone who thinks it's important is the one who is to take the step of making it an issue so that people actually get to understand. Now, something like what we have in the East African community, we saw the beauty of it when we first had it. So this is not something that we are figuring out. Remember, the rest of this continent didn't have what the East African community had. No, everything else came after. A lot of them were in the phase of discussion, and that is why the Pan-African movement didn't look like a dream. It looked like a reality that could actually be achieved. Why? You had an example in the East African community, something that was actually working. You saw it working. Now, many people may not know, but the 3 shillings were convertible.
Right, it's true. At some point they were.
They were. You could use, literally go to Tanzania, use a Kenyan shilling. But even now, you can still use it. The only thing is now the exchange rate is something else.
Right.
You see?
When you talk about now the monetary union and those kind of things, that's what it was supposed to harmonize.
Yes.
It's a long time. Frederick is calling in from Mombasa. Let's hear what he has to say. Frederick, good morning.
Morning again. Actually,
once
I'm coming
again.
for the second time.
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe just to refresh our memory, when we read our budgets, how much was our budget vis-a-vis the countries in East African community?
In terms of our shilling or in terms of their shilling?
No, in terms of our total national budget.
Right.
For a trading period of 1 year. Our budget was all combined was the budget for Kenya.
Right.
There is always a feeling that Kenya is like the superior person in the East African community. People are scared of Kenyans because if assuming you are taking someone like City with the overwhelming resources that he has in his brain, vis-a-vis a Tanzanian or a Uganda, I'm not underestimating the intellectual capacities.
Be careful. Don't put me at loggerhead with my wonderful neighbors.
No, I'm just giving an example. It's like
Thank you.
Trying to make a union. It's like trying to make a union where Nigeria is there with Mozambique, and Nigeria sees their national pride and the way they do things might be overwhelming to the other partners.
True.
There was a meeting that I attended for the maritime,
yes,
where we had Nigerians. You know, there is this maritime technological cooperation centers, and the engineers, all the maritime engineers, put together. Kenyans were outstanding. Not that we have a different port. In fact, our port was lesser than the one in Nigeria and Durban in South Africa. So the East African community, people are afraid of Kenyans because either we see things that they've not seen. A Kenyan sitting on the same table with the South Sudanese who have just had issues with their vice president and their president, they will talk issues. Most of Kenyan companies are the ones doing capacity building in the region.
Yes.
Talking to ministers in South Sudan, trying to do this with Tanzanians, and then now putting them together. I don't think the East African community will actually take off because of the past experiences. How is Kenya having the oil refinery that is now being privatized? Because it was the then East African community. People said, let's have this in Kenya, let's have this where, and when it collapsed, Kenyans had everything, including jets.
Yep.
And there was one Tanzanian pilot
So
who came and rescued one jet, which went to Tanzania. So
Frederick, you're
East
saying
African
there's
community,
mistrust.
Yeah, there is a lot of mistrust because of the intellectual capacity of Kenyans. Maybe through either is the sheer greed that Musalia said is honorable, or just the brilliant mind that Kenyans have that is more than the East African community. I think Kenya should just have a relationship with Nigeria. We can compete well with Nigeria or complement one another.
So that's our peer.
Okay.
Yeah. So thank you so much. But I think it is going to be a problem because we have got Sara people in Kenya that cannot be matched in the community.
Thank you, Frederick.
Thank you, Frederick.
Okay.
Interestingly enough, I mean, as an outsider looking in some cases, when you do go to other countries, Tanzania and Uganda, just as an example, the general sentiment, I mean, if we're just going to look at individuals to individuals, the general sentiment is that, Kenya, for example, does have the upper hand. And you can't deny that that is translated up, at this point when you see the ministerial summits, for example, taking place, that people come with an arsenal already, with a kind of mindset that, okay, either we are the underdogs or we are on top of the table in this case, that also plays out at that level as well. And it can't be ignored. So again, by the time the treaty is being
So are you saying that the underdogs then go and frustrate the efforts of everybody else?
I'm saying that the underdogs then take the time to make sure that everything is going well in their own countries before they then come and contribute to, because at that point, the priority for them is not
So they're building
to sit
their
at
own
the same
internal
table.
capacity.
They're building at that point. They
Which
say,
is
okay, well,
expected, which is
I need
fine,
to build.
which is the positive thing that's coming out of this.
That's true,
of
but
this
unfortunately, on the agreement of this community, you can't have any kind of development unless all the heads are in agreement. And in order for them to all be in agreement, you actually need to sit down and have these discussions upon then which things can be approved. And if these postponements please understand, these postponements didn't just happen in November 2019 and 2020. They've been happening over time. This is the thing. And to say that these postponements continue, then you put a stall on some of these things and how they're supposed to happen.
These processes, whether they are stalled or not, take time.
Absolutely.
Remember, the nuts and bolts are ironed out by the bureaucrats. And then they keep taking it to a higher official and so forth and so forth. And then they come back and meet. The meetings that take place behind the scenes are really numerous. By the time the heads of state are meeting, it means the people who've been handling these things have had some agreement. These fellows are coming to ratify. They don't come to discuss those details.
No.
That's not their job.
No.
Now, the issue is not the details of the East African community. It is the politics that individual countries have. And when you say priority, you may be right. But again, remember, when you are talking about integration, or the disintegration of the integration like we are seeing with Brexit, usually what is at the center of it is nationalistic sentiments and politics.
It starts from there.
Yes.
Of course. And this is the wave that the world is riding on right now.
And right now, there are people, people, it isn't in the public domain because the coronavirus has taken center stage. But there are people in Germany who have felt the same as the Brexit people. And have said, look, why do we need to stay here and we are the big brother here?
Take Italy, take Greece. They felt the same way. The United States have been touting for the longest time about, make America great again. This has been the sentiment. And like I said, it's the wave that the world is riding on now. Whereas in the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s, it was clear.
It was all about let's come together.
It was about let's come together and let's work together unto an expected end. But now the shift is very evident that it is let me work for myself. I talked to 1, 2, 3 on the side. I'll talk to Eric today. I can get that sorted out. I'll talk to CT here. I can get that sorted out. It's my sovereignty that I'm looking towards.
Let's go back to the phone lines for a bit. Lydia is calling in. Lydia from Parkland.
Good morning, Spice FM.
Hi.
Thank you for your good program as always to help our brains to think justice. What I wanted to say is the whole world should be one country. The whole world should be one country where all the honest, hard workers go about their daily duties. It's not my right to say, who are you? What are you doing here? The word xenophobia means that way. What are you doing here? Go away. And you get beaten up, you get looted, you get violently injured. The whole world should be one country where everybody goes about their honest, hard work and helping each one. That is what the whole world should be, one country. No, even the East African community was all about picking you by the bus, picking you by the railway, providing you with water, providing homes for all those who are giving you water, providing homes for all those who are policing you or looking after you. That is what the government is about, not big politicians in big cars. And look at our parliament. Recently, the bank if you ask them to certify your bank statement, they want to charge you 120 shillings per page, which means 20% tax on certifying each bank statement. Why should the tax eat 20%? They are not the honest hard workers. They are emptying the honest hard workers' pockets.
Thank you very much, Lydia. Thank you. Well, Lydia has actually been raising these issues for a long time, saying, people who are honest hard workers should be allowed to trade and, make out a living anywhere in the world. Let's come back and, discuss that as we continue the conversation. You can also call in 0719 012 600. Good morning. It's 12 minutes to 10 o'clock.
Spice FM, Nakuru. The 90s have never sounded so good.
Favorite songs of the 1990s.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
The argument is lost in the outcomes of such sentiments in the course of history. Some of the most atrocious things we've actually witnessed on this planet have come from nationalistic sentiments and politics. Because it then turns from being just nationalistic to be anti another group.
Yep.
And that's why some of the sentiments that we were taking on in this studio that were attributed to the Senator for Narok, it's not only timely, but it must continue. There are certain utterances that must not come out of the mouth of any leader. It doesn't matter how you want to twist it and say you didn't mean that.
Right.
Say what you mean. Don't allow us to interpret. Just say what you mean. If you don't...
And if that's what you mean, then just stand by what you mean.
Yes, and if you say, then we'll assume that that's what you mean.
Yep.
What you mean, exactly.
Let's pick this other caller. This is Zachary, our friend in Nakuru. Good morning, Zachary.
Hi, guys.
Good morning.
Hi, Zachary.
Morning, and I want to tell that he calls himself agent provocateur. You have to change that name because Thatcher of the house. She formed a committee to probe who is this agent. She was calling a agent provocator. Who provokes by agent.
Okay.
Right.
So you guys, we love you, and I'm following the discussion. And you are enlightening us, guys. Okay.
Yes, Asante. What do you think of the ESC?
For these African organizations, why they are not working is this: because initially when they were formed, they were formed by dictators. Dictators or semi-dictators. You see, who supported each other, and there was no complaints in their countries because if you brought a dissenting voice, definitely you are eliminated or you disappeared without trace. Okay.
Yeah.
But now that people like you are now aware, persons like me now are now aware, and you're enlightening me. If I cause dissent in Kenya, okay, and the laws of those organizations that if one member is not here, there is no business, okay. So most of them are going to be, to not to perform. And definitely they need to change laws. That is the point that I wanted to make. Also, on the point of Mr. Musalia Mudavadi, and I hope he is listening, let me keep in that Kenyan politics do not entertain this British mannerism, you see? That you know that
what?
That you have to act.
Kenyan politics does not entertain what, gentlemanly?
The British mannerism. You don't have to be that much mannered, you know?
You want people to be brash.
You want people to be rough.
Sometimes it's the house in Kenya, that is. If you want to connect with the men on the streets there, it is the fittest, the survival for the fittest. And in that way, you have to throw in some tantrums, okay? for you to connect with us people, but you do not have to tell us that the way we dine in the roadside kiosk, that you bring the mannerism of Grand Regency and the rights to do that, whatever. So let him up his tone, you see?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Zachary.
Let us hear his voice,
Thank you, Zachary. Saying, come on, you're too calm, right? Too calm. But also he says that he agrees with what you're saying, Mdu, that there should be a review. That, leaders of the East African, community should sit and review, relook at what brought them. What is it that brings us together?
Right. The very tenets.
Does
I
it
mean,
serve us?
the leaders at the helm themselves have said, it's about time, folks, that we look at this thing again, because the back and forth and the sentiment that has, basically taken us to this point is something that's serious enough that cannot be ignored.
Let's go back to the phone lines. Peter in Nairobi, good morning.
Hello, Eric.
Yes.
Okay, I want to say this. Okay, the East African Community Bloc.
Yep.
You see, for here, how democratic we are in a country determines whether you can work in an economic bloc. Kenya is quite democratic as compared to our partners around here. And that is what is making most of this time. It is so difficult for these other people to join us because they feel, these people, they are working well. So me, my feeling is that East African community doesn't work most of the time because of some of these countries are not very democratic. In a democratic space, you do things the right way. Now, for example, a country like Somalia, how do you come and what do you bring on the table when people are discussing? And even Sudan the other day, So I think East African community might not work very smoothly because these other countries are not as democratic as Kenya. Kenya, there is democratic space. Yes, there is democratic. We are doing things the right way. So that's my feeling why East African community is not working. It might not work very well very soon.
Okay.
You've expressed your sentiments well, my brother, but like a true Kenyan nationalist.
Yes.
One of the things that many people do not know is that if you are talking of the abundance of the fishing resource or what you call the blue economy resource, it's not found in Kenya.
Yes.
It's found in Somali waters. That is where you have an abundance of it. And in a situation where there is peace, Somali actually would contribute significantly to any trade that the East African community may have.
But there is no peace at the moment there.
No. Every country has their level of peace. If you went to Somali, you would find that very many pockets and very many regions in Somaliland, people are going about their business as normal.
Oh, yeah, you wouldn't know that there was war in other parts of the country or conflict.
Yes, but regionally, as you say, they are not one country as we are in Kenya. There are blocks where you have, say, what we are calling warlords. It's not very different from DRC, though they say they have one president. Somalia also has somebody who's called the president of Somalia as a whole. All I'm saying is that the East African community helps bring about this sort of unification that would help this country move forward.
And the diversity.
And we as Kenyans must be careful not to lord it over our neighbors and talk about these wonderful achievements, which are actually true. But we should use it to lord it over our neighbors.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Oscar.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning, Oscar.
Morning, how are you?
Good,
We're
good.
fine, thank you.
Odijo sasa?
Fiti.
Uko salama?
Maridadi kabisa.
Wow.
Vile Waswahili husema hofu kwako.
Sina hofu.
Sijui wewe.
Bwana wewe Oscar, unajua watu wa bara wanajaribu lakini
tuongee Kiingereza.
Nasikia watu wa bara hapo wanang'ang'ana.
Basi wanaminyana haswa.
Wanaminyana
Small now.
Aya, uliza kiulizo yako Oscar.
You should let me know that kumenyana is well depicted in the scenario of the Amalize the cat.
Yes.
Whose back could not touch
the ground.
Yes, that is kumenyana.
Bas.
Wrestling.
Okay, got it.
All right, Oscar. ESC.
Now, what I would wish to say in the scenario of ESC, I think if we were genuinely to look at building a block as an economic block, I think that would be the best thing that could ever happen to our region.
Right.
Because then we have a stronger voice when we go out there to bargain for the markets that we want to have. the only challenge is, I think anything that we need to do as a region must first be founded upon legislation and treaties and agreements. Yet those are missing. The reason why I say those are missing, today I was just looking at a paper somewhere, and there's someone who, okay, just this is an example, someone who has taken the current president of Uganda to the East African Court, and they say they are willing to hear the case over the age limit. I am not so sure whether that would even yield any different result from what the Ugandan court has passed, because they do not operate from the same platform. In Kenya here, the brother who has just spoken before me has said we are democratic. I'm not so sure whether that is qualified or it's just a statement. But the other thing that I see with our efforts to have a block is that, we can say all we want to say. Yes, it is true that maybe we have seen the light much more than